Liddy, the protagonist and a porter, reveals at the beginning of the novel that adventurers always have old goods in town, ranging from everyday objects to rare treasures. Even though these things are necessary for travel, they can make fighting more difficult. Thus, an essential member of each adventurer's crew was a porter. Having never engaged in combat, they lacked combat abilities. During the quest, they had just to carry the team's belongings. Porters were viewed as background outcasts by some and unsung heroes by others. That was the meaning of being a porter. Naturally, each gang of heroes had their own porter. A hero named Rosark screams at the Demon Lord in the first scene, saying that they will finally destroy him and that this is his demise. Upon defeating the Demon Lord, Liddy exclaims with joy that Rosark was the one responsible. Rosark says yes, smiles, and thanks Liddy for sticking by them till the finish. Working with each of them has been an enormous honor, according to Liddy. Ignore, the wizard, and the names of his other teammates are then mentioned by Liddy. Farah, the priest, and Donis, the warrior. Even though the Demon Lord didn't contribute anything to the fight, Liddy claims that despite the overwhelming odds, they managed to beat him by combining their individual talents. Still, he gives them his congratulations. Donis warns Liddy not to undervalue himself, claiming that it was only because to him that they were able to give the demon their best effort. In agreement with Donis, Rosark adds that without Liddy, none of it would have been feasible. The Demon Lord was vanquished by them all working together. With tears in his eyes, Liddy grew emotional at hearing this. Rosark was taken aback by this and questioned in bewilderment. "What's the matter? Was he injured, Liddy?" Liddy says no, adding that he suddenly recognized how fortunate he was to have met each of them. He was just another war orphan child 5 years ago, but they took him in and made him their porter. Liddy expresses his gratitude once more and says he considers himself fortunate to have worked with them. The feeling is mutual. Adner responds with a smile. Adner nods, and Donis agrees. Farah claims that she thinks Liddy's attendance at the party has been a huge boon to them. What do they do now that they have vanquished the Demon Lord? Rosark asks as they make their way home. Then, for nostalgia's sake, Rosark asks if they don't mind telling him about their plans. Agner responds that she intends to go back to her forest since the knowledge she acquired along the way will undoubtedly lead to a breakthrough in her research. Donis reveals that he believes Rosark will eventually find him traveling with some significant others. Many will desire a hero's companion's protection. Thera reveals that she plans to visit the cathedral once more. She has been and will continue to be a loyal servant of their lord regardless of their path. I bet they're all wondering where the hero is going, Rosark says with a smile. Agnor yells at him to stop talking and inquires as to if he can even remember how many times he has brought up the subject. Rosark nevertheless reveals that he is traveling to the capital because he made a vow to wed the princess after the quest is finished. That is the primary reason he embarked on this perilous adventure. Rosark goes on to say that he will wed a princess who is incredibly beautiful. He can't wait to see her in bed. Rosark is as crude as ever, Igna replies. If it weren't for this aspect of Rosark, Farah continues, she believes he would be the perfect companion for any fair lady. Rosark then asks Liddy if she would want to accompany him to the royal capital. Liddy initially appreciates Rosark for the opportunity, but he quickly declines, stating that he has already decided for some time that he wants to be an adventurer. Everyone is in disbelief upon hearing this. Startled, Ignore inquires as to Liddy's certainty. An anxious Donis requests Liddy not to announce that he is going alone. With a smile, Liddy replies, yes, adding that he truly intends to begin as a lone adventurer. He continues by saying that although he is aware that he has a long way to go, he hopes to one day be able to stand tall beside them all. Donis acknowledges that he recognizes that this will be a challenging situation. Farah goes on to say that Liddy's admiration for them is an honor. However, Aidner yells at them, telling them to stop LYDDY. Donis responds by questioning how they could possibly crush LYDDY's dreams. While agreeing that it's awful, Farah maintains that they must stop him. According to Aidner, LYDDY is not at all gifted as an adventurer. He is still unable to light a match, she explains, despite her having tried everything to teach him magic. Donis goes on to say that he has been Lydy's mentor for a long time, but to no avail, attempting to teach him the fundamentals of fighting. Farah cheerfully notes that Liddy was able to learn how to be polite and eat properly, which should be plenty, even though he couldn't even hold a basic dagger for the life of him. Adenor believes that Liddy has no aptitude for anything combative and that being an adventurer is the worst thing he could do, even if he hasn't been able to cast a single spell yet. She then asks everyone who will inform Liddy of the news. Farah replies that she is unable to do so. Donis yells at the two girls, asking them not to look at him since they can't possibly expect an elderly guy to break their grandchild's heart, since she can't fathom how she would handle causing him the misery that the truth may bring. However, Adner cuts in, stating that Donis is ideal for this position. She advises him to give it some thought since, in order to protect his grandson, the weaker elder must confront him with the hard realities of life. She asks Donis once more whether he wouldn't be acting morally. Since he has lived a lot longer than she has, she believes that he should be in charge of the duty. To their astonishment, however, Rosark cuts them off and inquires as to what they are all arguing about. He advises them to simply let Liddy do as he pleases if you want to follow this course. Everyone is taken aback and wonders if Rosark is being serious. Adner yells, wondering if he feels guilty or how he could say something so careless. It's quite risky, Farah continues. According to Donis, he believes one of them needs to watch over Liddy. Rosark reminds them that Liddy is now fully grown up and urges them to reconsider. After saying, "Let the chick leave its nest," Rosark asks Liddy if he has decided. Yes, Liddy replies, but only if Rosark is on board. Yes, replies Rosark, Liddy has his blessings. He does, however, clarify that there is one requirement before he will let Liddy pursue her dream of adventurer. He is confident Liddy will pull it off without any problems, though. After giving Liddy a pat on the head, Rosark says he has witnessed him do it once before and that he is confident Liddy can now do it on his own. Reminding Liddy that true men don't break their promises, Rosark asks him again what he says. After giving it some thought, Liddy replies that he will, intending to surpass Rosark as the greatest adventurer in history. At last, they all agreed with Rosark and depart as a group. After that, Liddy believes that the moment has come for him to start his own journey. The happiest period of his life was spent with the hero's party for 5 years. He had merely been under their care all that time, but all he could do was stare at them in wonder. However, that was to change now that he was going to become an adventurer. Liddy was ecstatic since he believed that this would be the beginning of his adventurous career. However, as soon as he steps forward for the first time, someone yells for Liddy to stop. Asking if they need anything from him, Liddy stiffens up and turns around. Since he doesn't think they've met before, Liddy asks them incoherently when he first sees them. When the group bursts out laughing, they ask Liddy if he believes he's being cool and can leave. She asks if Liddy is a porter and yells once more that he has no chance of escaping. Liddy answers yes and inquires as to why they are interested. She goes on to claim that although Liddy was a porter, she saw that he was alone, which indicates that no one was around to watch on the mountain loot he returned with. She promises to let Liddy go alive and demands angrily that he turn over the loot. Liddy tells them to wait, as they sound a lot like those guys when she sees them acting in this manner. The girl inquires as to whether Liddy has truly guessed it up to this point after hearing this. Then, if he wants to avoid getting wounded, she advises him to move quickly. To their astonishment, Liddy suddenly displays awe at the fact that they are robbers. Declaring that they are indeed bandits and that it has likely been years since he last saw one, he begins to circle them. According to Liddy, halfway through their adventure, their party gains so much notoriety that people simply stop pursuing them. Perplexed, the bandit girl inquires as to what the child is talking about. Then, according to Liddy, it helps him realize that he has embarked on his own journey. He asks if they need anything from him and apologizes for forgetting. The girl bandit now yells that Liddy has courage, but if he believes that they won't touch him because he is too young, he is completely mistaken. She yells at him, swoops down on Liddy, and gets ready to strike. As the scene then switches to Rosark and the other teammates, Adenor adds she can't help but worry about Liddy and whether he's truly okay. She should put it off, Rosark advises. How could she do that? Adenor yells angrily. Lyddy is a porter at heart, Donis continues. According to Thera, Lyddy lacks any discernible fighting or magical skills, and she worries about what might happen to him if some evildoers target him. Rosark chuckles as he hears all of this and claims that throughout their quest, they truly lost touch with reality. Perplexed, Donis queries his meaning. Once more, Rosark implores everyone to have faith in him, saying that Lyddy will be all right. There Rosark goes again. Adner yells angrily, demanding to know where he even finds that confidence. Telling Ignore not to talk out of his ass since he knows Lyddy will be all right, Rosark tensely encourages him to calm down. The similar thing is happening on the opposite side as he begins to describe Lyddy. Although it is true that Lyddy is a porter and has no fighting skills, Rosark points out that everyone is forgetting that Lyddy is a porter of heroes. Lyddy is attacked by the bandits on the opposite side, where the same thing is taking place. They are shocked to see how quickly Lyddy sidesteps the strike. Keeping the party's belongings safe during a battle is a porter's top priority, according to Rosark, and Liddy did a fantastic job of it the entire way. Are they forgetting that they were facing the Demon Lord and his whole army? Rosark says. He tells them that even though Liddy didn't actively participate in their fights, he was nevertheless vulnerable to unintended consequences. One time, they faced a dragon that devastated the entire area with its breath, and another time the demon army had tens of thousands of arrows showering down on them. And Liddy was able to protect all of their gear during all of those conflicts. Actually, he can now easily avoid the bandit girl's attacks thanks to the same skill. Confused, the bandit girl wonders why none of her attacks have affected Liddy and laments the situation. Feeling anxious, Liddy tells them to stop and that he must leave right away. In actuality, it was all made possible by Liddy's level 79 auxiliary skill, Evasion. Then, Liddy reminds them once more that robbery is illegal and that they ought to cease their actions. The bald bandit charged at Liddy from behind and launched an attack as he was speaking. It was too late when Liddy whirled back, and he was struck. When the focus returns to the hero team, Fura queries what would happen if Liddy were ever unable to avoid his enemy's strike. Rosark retorts that everyone makes mistakes occasionally, and that no one is flawless. He utilizes his own body as a shield anytime Liddy makes a mistake and something could hit their cargo that he couldn't avoid in time. In actuality, Liddy's endurance talent, which is at level 85, broke when the bald guy struck him with the stick. Tensed, the bald man asks, "What the hell just happened?" Liddy claims that the stick broke and apologizes for it. The fact that Liddy is completely unharmed shocks the bald guy even more. Then Liddy asks them both if they realize that negative things never lead to success in life. He exhorts them to cease robbing defenseless tourists. Liddy's statements appear to have puzzled both bandits. Then Liddy shows a blade and threatens to punish them if they carry out their schemes. The bald man becomes anxious, but Liddy's combat skills are at level 0, so he slices his own finger by accident. For the time being, Liddy believes he needs to do something that would frighten them into quitting being bandits, because he still finds it difficult to use blades. Liddy suddenly recalls something. When the action returns to the heroes group, Dawnist inquires as to when Liddy will have to overcome his opponent. He makes the point that simply remaining on the defensive won't get you through every interaction without getting hurt. Rosark says that's the last thing they should be concerned about and asks if they're serious. He clarifies that the porter's role is not to engage in combat, but to transport the party's loot back with them. According to Rosark, they killed dragons and vanquished magic golems. And because the majority of their body parts are useful, they always tried to bring as much of them back with them. Then Rosark questions the group once more. Who could bear the weight of whole dragons and stones on his back? Yes, it was Liddy, Razor continues, adding that he may already be the world's top weightlifter. The bandits are seen to be utterly taken aback by something as the action returns to Liddy. The robbers are taken aback by Liddy's effortless lifting of a huge stone the size of a house. All of this is a result of his level 99 support skill, Backpacker. Incredulous, the bandits wonder what the devil he was. Liddy answers quietly and with a smile. He served as the hero's party porter. The bandits are horrified and beg Liddy to spare them after hearing this. They begin to flee without any further delay. Liddy yells at them to make a vow to refrain from robbing innocent travelers going forward. He smiles and returns the stone to the earth when they have left. Rosark returns to the scene and shares. Liddy did not actively participate in their conflicts with the Demon Lord's troops, it is true. However, Liddy is unquestionably strong on his own. It's like he's the world's greatest adventurer because he's the hero. Liddy is the strongest porter in the world since he is the porter for heroes. Razor goes on to say that Liddy will now be the one embarking on an adventure, and he would be damned if he wasn't thrilled to see him succeed. The following day was subsequently depicted, this time in the provincial city of Takar in the kingdom of Casimir. As the first line of defense against any demonic assault, this city is one of several human settlements close to the Demon Lord's palace. It has been a fortress against the Demon Lord's army for 10 years, and despite being so close to demon territory, it has never permitted any demons to pass within its boundaries. It felt like a city-wide party when Liddy first arrived in the kingdom, which astounded him. He believed that the inhabitants on this frontier had already heard about the hero's triumph over the Demon Lord. Most likely, Miss Farah's magic is to blame. News of their triumph spread like wildfire as her emissaries throughout the country. This could finally be an era of genuine peace, once the word spreads to the most remote regions of the globe. Children were playing and yelling that they were heroes as they ran throughout the kingdom. Liddy was overjoyed to see this, since they had actually been successful in bringing about world peace. He questioned whether he would ever be able to equal their accomplishments. Nevertheless, Liddy recalled Rosark's declaration that he would become the greatest adventurer in the world, and he made the decision that this village would be the starting point of his quest. After a while, the action moved to the Thicker Guild, where Liddy startlingly inquired as to why the guild was unable to approve his registration. In response, the receptionist asked Liddy if she really needed to ask. Indeed, Liddy had no skill with a bow, no skill with a sword, and no skill with magic. An adventurer's life is a dangerous one, the receptionist explained, adding that he did not pass any of the 3 fundamental exams. Therefore, if Liddy walked out in that manner, he would be in grave danger. He was so surprised to hear this that he cried out, "There is no way that could happen." He then realized that he was carrying a letter of recommendation. Although Liddy really didn't want to use it, he was forced to since he couldn't fail before leaving the house. The receptionist had to look at the letter even though she was sick of the situation. The receptionist was startled to find the signatures of the warrior Donis, the priest Farah, the wizard Adner, and the hero Rosark on the letter. She asked Liddy who he was shocked. Just as Liddy opened his mouth to reply, the receptionist yelled, "Have you forged it?" Liddy gave a stiff no in response. At that moment, a different voice interrupted, warning the receptionist not to make such snap judgments. The receptionist recognized the guild master Zornius when she turned to face the voice. He requested that she show him the letter. Still adamant that it was a fake, the receptionist handed it over. Once Zornius had read the letter, he asked the receptionist if she could recall what the hero had said to him when he had visited the city once. As the scene switches to Rosark and Zornius conversing, Zornius advises Rosark to notify the guild if he needs anything. They would do everything it took to help Rosark fight the Demon Lord. The Adventurers Guild was founded with the express purpose of eradicating the threat posed by demons. They have a responsibility and a purpose to help Rosark in any way they can. With a smile on his face, Rosark asked Zornius if he really meant that was the only reason he had. He continued by saying that his heart races at every turn since being an adventurer is a journey of discovery. He was aware that he shouldn't say it, particularly with the entire planet resting on their shoulders. However, every excursion they went on during their mission was an absolute delight for him. Who's to say that simply because there is calm, people should stop exploring even if the Demon Lord isn't endangering their world? That's why everyone will need Zornias and the guild when that moment comes. Rosark said that he wants Zornias and the guild to raise real adventurers once they vanquish the great Demon Lord and restore peace to the land. As the action moves to the present, Zornias informs Liddy and the receptionist that the Demon Lord's defeat was only a few days ago. He added that while it might be too soon to declare with certainty that there were no external threats to the globe, he could claim with certainty that Sir Rosark's hero shared Rosark's ambitions and hoped for a world in which anybody might become an adventurer. Then Zornias informed Liddy that he had personally authorized his registration, and Liddy would start with the F, which is the lowest ranking. Zornias said that he didn't think Liddy would let him down. Liddy was pleased and said, yes, adding that he would try his hardest and that he was grateful to the guild master. Then Zornias went inside, and Liddy started to celebrate. However, the receptionist made an effort to ask Zornias further questions. Zornias was asked by the receptionist if he truly felt comfortable allowing the child to waste his life. No, Zornias replied, it wouldn't be like that. He mentioned that the boy was no longer a child. The receptionist was taken aback by this, and Zornias had high hopes for Liddy because he was aware that Liddy had served as a young porter for the hero's party. After a while, the action changed to Liddy looking at the quest he had been given. Delivering the goods to the next town before dawn was his first mission. Liddy was thrilled to read this because it was so easy for him. After all, it felt no different than his work as a porter. But he couldn't make a mistake because this was a crucial first step for an adventurer. He yelled, concluding that if he didn't securely deliver the package to its destination, he would never be a true adventurer. Liddy heard someone yell, ouch, as he got up and started to carry the goods on his back. He dropped the cargo to the ground, startled, and opened it to discover what was inside. When Liddy opened the package, he was shocked to see a girl and a baby dragon. In reality, he discovered that his cargo was a girl. The girl claimed that she was merely an object that needed to be delivered and requested Liddy not to worry about her. When it talked, Liddy was taken aback. He replied that he didn't believe it and that she was attempting to place a delivery request in order to smuggle herself out of town. The girl's face changed when she heard this, and she didn't appear pleased. The girl was then informed by Liddy that she was unable to do so because the guild has distinct protocols for delivery and escort quests. He requested that she return and submit a suitable quest. At that moment, the girl remained mute. Then Liddy said he was shocked at how composed she was. The dragon was small, but it was still a dragon, he said, and he questioned her how she could be so calm. Then Liddy considered how uncommon dragons were in this area. He had been accustomed to the thought of them, remembering how they used to battle hordes of dragons all at once. Then, presuming that he was a very experienced adventurer to remain composed in this circumstance, the girl spoke up. She would like to ask him directly if such were the case. It was a hefty ask, and she knew it. However, would he mind taking her to her destination? Then she pulled a pitying face and begged him to assist her. Liddy retorted that it was forbidden, but the girl unexpectedly noticed something and hurriedly retreated into the box. Perplexed, Liddy inquired as to what was wrong and the reason behind her concealment. At that moment, Liddy heard a youngster named Raka shout out to him, asking if he had seen a young girl walk past with a small dragon in tow. Inquiring as to whether she was related to him, Liddy questioned Raka about his plans for her when they located her. Raka's quiet voice cut Liddy off at that point, asking him to ignore it and only respond to Raka's questions. Raka instructed his Loki to let him speak. Then he told Liddy that the girl was a noble and that they had been told to return her undamaged. Raka stated he was going to politely inquire again whether he had seen a female with a pet dragon on these streets as he drew closer to Liddy. The girl within the box started to shake a lot when she heard this. Liddy thought of the time he had questioned Rosark about how he determined who was deserving of his assistance. He had been questioned if he really needed to pose that question by Rosark, who had grinned. Then Rosark asserted firmly that a real adventurer constantly associates with attractive women. Aidina yelled at Rosark to stop making fun of Liddy by teaching him negative things. Then, as the action returned to the present, Liddy revealed to everyone that he had never laid eyes on a girl. Is that true? Roka asked, after explaining he had to go and expressing regret for not being with assistance. Liddy grabbed up the box and slung it over his back. Abruptly, Raka inquired about the contents of Liddy's box. In response, Liddy said he had some merchandise to deliver. Raka said that he was prepared to purchase the cargo and asked Liddy how much he was requesting. No thanks, Liddy said, adding that he was delivering it as part of a quest. Then Raka questioned whether Liddy was indeed not taking in what he was picking. Liddy, perplexed, said he was fairly certain he understood and said, "No." Raka yelled angrily that Liddy was not understanding and that he should simply give him the box, or else Liddy would suffer greatly. Raka swung a punch at Liddy, but Liddy deftly sidestepped the blow, sending Raka crashing into the wall. Liddy immediately inquired as to Raka's well-being after he groaned in agony after striking the wall. "Liddy broke his goddamn arm," Raka retorted. Raka yelled in rage that he had had enough of Liddy and gave his Loki the command to murder him. But Liddy took off running before anyone could do anything. Everybody attempted to strike, but Liddy expertly sidestepped their blows. Frustrated, the men yelled that they couldn't strike him and that they had no idea who this young lad was. Raka yelled for everyone to chase after Liddy as he started to run away from them, certain that nobody should allow that brat to get away. By the time Raka had finished yelling, Liddy had already fled quite a distance. This astonished everyone, and they all agreed that Liddy wasn't an ordinary child. Raka brushed off their worries, stating that since Liddy was still a child and they needed to find him, it didn't matter. Liddy noticed some soldiers obstructing his path as he arrived at the lane's edge. He knew he had to turn around when he saw Raka and his thugs coming up behind him. At that point, Raka chuckled and said that the entire city was encircled by walls. He also questioned Liddy's belief that he could sneak away through the gates, which were closed at night. He made fun of Liddy by claiming that he currently had nowhere to go. Then Raka yelled at Liddy, threatening to break every bone in Liddy's body and demanding payment for the damage he caused to his arm. That's what Raka did to himself, Liddy thought in answer. Additionally, Liddy believed that he could always rush back to the guild, but doing so would take longer than the objective allowed. He had to find a different way out so as not to bother the other adventurers. Liddy glanced to the wall abruptly before knocking on the box. Liddy could turn her over to them, the girl said, sticking her head out a bit. Indeed, she was adamant that she could not possibly let them face any more danger. Liddy asked her to keep her head down and her mouth shut for a bit. The girl gave him a perplexed expression. Liddy promised her that he would never allow them to have her, so she need not fear. With a chuckle, Liddy noted that she had been his prior cargo and that the only thing he was excellent at was keeping the item entrusted to him secure. The girl gazed at Liddy's face, rather surprised. Meanwhile, Liddy was being attacked by Raka and his thugs. Liddy snatched up the box without thinking and threw it over the wall using his level 66 skill, Throw. Everyone was in disbelief, wondering how in the world Liddy was throwing it so far and what in heck he was doing. They pondered whether Liddy intended to accompany him in taking the girl down. As everyone's attention was focused on the box, Liddy used his level 72 sprint talent to run for the gate while dodging the astonished onlookers. Everyone was taken aback by Liddy's quickness. However, they soon became aware of the situation and began to question if he would indeed breach the kingdom gate. When the guards outside the gate saw the box, they were perplexed and wondered if it was a container. Liddy rushed out at that moment, smashing the gate as he fled. Liddy hurried past the guards and yelled an apology. Even the guards had trouble seeing him properly and were perplexed by the situation. Abruptly, the dragon and the girl came out of the box. The girl began to scream in terror as soon as she realized she was falling. She was shocked to discover that Liddy had arrived in time to embrace her. Liddy apologized and inquired as to if it hurt when she asked whether she was all right. "I'm fine, just a little surprised," the girl replied. A little later, Liddy grabbed the box, put her back in it, and threw it over his shoulder. Before everyone got up to them, Liddy added, it was time for them to move forward. The girl expressed regret to Liddy, claiming that her self-centered behavior had placed him in such a vulnerable position. Liddy said that since it was his responsibility to get her to her destination, it was all right and she didn't have to feel bad. She should simply sit tight, he said. Liddy was then asked by the girl if they were planning to visit the next town over. When Liddy said yes, she clarified that it would be their first checkpoint. The girl went on to say that they will travel farther south to Marek, Hansel, Altonia, and lastly Fenalicia after arriving at the next town. She requested a ride to the kingdom of Fenalicia from Liddy. Liddy yelled in shock at what she heard. What? Fenalicia? He was her only chance, and she had no one else to rely on but him. the girl said, acknowledging that it was too much to ask. Then she pleaded with him for assistance. She demanded that she return to Fenalicia as soon as possible and assured him that he would receive a fair reward for the work. Curious, Liddy questioned her about why she was in such a rush to reach Fenalicia. According to Liddy, Fenalicia is the kingdom that is farthest from the border and is located at the southernmost tip of the continent. He clarified that even he wouldn't find the journey simple, therefore he wanted to hear her reasons first. "I am the princess of Fenalicia," the girl replied coolly. At first, Liddy thought that made sense, but then she realized what she had said. Startled, he yelled, "What a princess!" The girl gave a smile and said, "My name is Veronica Fenalicia. She is the kingdom of Fenalicia's first princess." They continued going till Liddy came to a tree and informed Veronica that they should camp and take some rest as he didn't think the thugs would locate them here. Veronica tells Liddy that she is very sorry for putting him in risk for her, and she apologizes for all that transpired. Liddy chuckles and assures her that he is simply carrying out his duties as an adventurer. The dragon abruptly interrupts to inform Veronica that this is royalty. She needs to play the role. The greatest and most effective weapon a king can use is their strength of character. The dragon even exhorts Veronica to talk more boldly. Then it approaches Liddy and inquires as to if this is the first time he has heard a dragon talk. After all, Liddy doesn't get to see a legendary dragon every day, so that seemed decent enough. Then, as the dragon prepares to recount his story, the dragon instructs him to properly cover his ears. Liddy inquired as to whether it was one of those Lexi dragons before the dragon could respond. Startled, the dragon inquired about Liddy's knowledge of its species. Veronica then reveals that she has been a student at the Casimir Magic Academy for the last 5 years. Casimir has always been at the forefront of magical research, which is why she enrolled there. She didn't let the fact that it was close to the demon lord's domain deter her. But after last year's events, she was unable to remain there any longer. She revealed that an unidentified assailant had killed her father, the king of Fenalicia. Liddy was shocked to hear this and inquired as to the king's murder. This fact remained hidden throughout the war, Veronica responds. They didn't want to spread fear while they were already battling the demons, she continues. Yido, the dragon, steps in and declares that it is time to tell the truth and let his kin to take his place. But he goes on to say that it's not that easy. Yido asks Liddy once more if he comprehends what he is saying. Liddy responds that someone is attempting to prevent Veronica from going back to the kingdom, but he questions who would take such action. Yido adds that he has solid evidence that it's Flora, the second princess. She was born to a different mother and is Veronica's half-sister. Yido yells that Flora will be the heir apparent if Veronica isn't present. He wagers that Flora was involved in the king's murder. Yido is held back by Veronica, who claims that Flora's extreme kindness makes it impossible for it to be true. For the sake of the throne, she thinks Flora wouldn't plan an assassination against her own father. Veronica adds that she is currently interested in learning the truth about what is actually taking place at the palace. She must find out who is responsible for the turmoil and why. Flora would also be in risk if she were being coerced into cooperating with the criminal. In order to get Liddy to take her to the kingdom, Veronica asks him once more. Liddy responds with a smile. Yes, Veronica can definitely rely on him. Yido is taken aback. Since Yido believes Liddy may be attempting to pawn them off to traffickers, he asks Veronica if she is certain about Liddy after noticing that Liddy doesn't even have the slightest doubt. They should at least trust Liddy, Veronica replies, adding that she believes Yido is being too impolite to Liddy. Yido tensely asks Liddy if he's truly prepared for this as he approaches him once more. He admits that Veronica will give him a sizable prize after it's all done, but cautions that the path won't be simple. In response, Liddy says he understands but still wants to help since he believes that a hero would act in his place. When Veronica hears this, she starts to wonder why Liddy is referring to a hero. Besides, it's not every day that a new adventurer gets to work with a princess on his first quest, Liddy adds. He is truly grateful to her for providing him with this chance. Veronica is thrilled to hear this, but Yido suddenly remembers something and yells for Liddy to wait, questioning whether he's truly new to this. Yido yells at Veronica, saying that since Liddy is a total novice, it won't work. Veronica replies that she's sure they'll be all right because Yaito witnessed how Liddy outran all those assassins while carrying them. Liddy adds that he'll try his hardest. The action then switches to Raka and his thugs, who are enraged that they were unable to find Liddy so quickly. One of Raka's thugs inquires as to whether he believes Liddy and the girl haven't made much progress and may have made camp close by. He inquires as to whether Raka wants him to assemble a pursuit squad. Raka replies that there is no point because their fate was decided the instant they left Thicker. Xanamund is aiming for them. The goon is shocked to hear this and inquires as to if Raka is referring to that renowned killer. Yes, Raka replies, bringing up the aristocratic assassin Xanamund. He adds that Xanamund's kill rate is flawless. Unless someone wants to experience what it's like to breathe through a sliced windpipe, it's best to avoid him because not a single human has survived to tell the story. All of the goons became terrified and fell silent upon hearing this. At last, Raka informed them that it was time to leave for home. The fact that the goons were not compensated for their labor was another reason for their sadness. The action returns to Liddy and Veronica, who are both asleep. Liddy wakes up abruptly after sensing something. Veronica asks tensely what occurred after witnessing him wake up so quickly. Liddy replies that they are being approached. Veronica stiffens and inquires as to if it is their assailants. According to Liddy, there appears to be just one of them. Liddy's hearing ability, which is at level 68, allowed him to discern this. He believes that at that moment, it sounds as though someone is watching them from a considerable distance. Given the distance between them, Liddy believed they shouldn't be in any immediate danger because this individual was far more talented than the criminals who were pursuing them in Thicker. Liddy made the decision to wait for the person to initiate since he knew that the person would probably attack Veronica eventually. They would flee as soon as they had survived the initial assault. A mystical rope leaped at Liddy and bound him before he could think any more. It was too late by the time Liddy recognized that he is the target. Yaito and Veronica were both taken aback by this. The fact that Liddy hadn't anticipated it made him anxious as well. He assumed that the target would be Veronica. In actuality, monsters and demons typically prey on people while ignoring the party's belongings, such as the porter. Throughout their adventures, he had never once been targeted. However, he was no longer merely a porter, and they were not facing monsters. Prior to attacking the primary target, it is advisable to focus on the rear or support. Liddy realized that this is what it's like to fight as an explorer and became angry with himself for being so naive. Xanamund remarked that the ambush had gone much more smoothly than he had anticipated as he came out of the woodland at that precise moment. He said that he had a gut feeling Liddy was very capable, but it appeared he was wrong. He no longer had the same instincts. Yaito asked the assassin to identify himself and tensely exhorts Liddy to stand up. In response, Xanamund says it is a privilege to meet her and introduces himself as the humble Erdos Bardani. She has been targeted for death, he adds, but he also apologizes for disturbing her journey. According to Xanamund, he will claim her life. When Yaito attacks Veronica with an icicle wave in an attempt to protect her, Xanamund retorts that Yaito has a quite intriguing familiar. With one of his own against Yaito, he circumvents the attack encounters with ease. Yaito informs Veronica that there is no hope and that they both need to flee after he is slightly hurt. However, Veronica, who is nervous, asks Yaito about Liddy and says that they can't just leave him like that. Liddy is shocked to see this and realizes that he is the reason they are unable to flee. Yaito then exhorts Veronica to use her mana to destroy Xanamund, saying that they have no option but to strike back. Tragically, Veronica replies emphatically that she is unable to do so, since doing so would put Liddy's life in risk. Liddy yells at her to do it and not to worry about him. It's because if she didn't take action quickly, they would all have died anyhow. Even though Veronica was still unsure of what to do, Liddy persisted in pleading to her. Xanamund, meantime, approached Veronica in preparation for an assault. At last, she was forced to launch her attack. Xanamund was taken aback when she started to channel her mana, questioning whether she was using a wind magic. But when he looked more closely, he saw that it wasn't a spell. The girl's mana was flowing out of control. Her entire mana was being released, causing a storm of utter devastation. Xanamund was shocked by her strength and questioned how someone could have that much mana. It was uncommon, and he knew his barrier would not withstand it. Everything around Veronica is crushed when a huge tornado strikes. She sits dejectedly on the ground until it eventually stops, feeling defeated that she was unable to master her mana once again. She was devastated because she thought her uncontrollable mana had killed Yido and Liddy. She was about to cry when, unexpectedly, Liddy's voice informed her that they were still alive. Veronica expressed her joy at seeing them both safe and was astounded. After apologizing to Liddy for starting the commotion, Veronica tells him that, despite her extensive study, she has never been able to manage her mana. She would actually find it difficult to refer to what she had done earlier as a spell. She just let go of all the mana she could. Yido breaks in to tell her that she is misguided if she believes that they have come this far to learn how to manage it. Not even a shred of progress has been made. Liddy is then questioned by Veronica about how he was able to hide. It's easier than she thinks, Liddy replies. The bind he had put at Liddy was released by the assassin the last moment. Xanamund most likely required all the mana he could gather to protect himself from her strike, that he hurried to get Yido before the cyclone struck. Then he hid under some tree roots. Liddy talked about it as though it were the most natural thing to do, so Veronica was taken aback when she heard this. It struck her as a rather remarkable accomplishment. Experience was necessary to be able to quickly determine the best course of action in that circumstance. She remembered Liddy calling him a newbie, so she was shocked. Veronica asked Liddy to excuse her for it, but she also wants to know what he was doing before he became an adventurer. He was a porter, Liddy replies. Perplexed, Veronica queries, a porter? For what party? With a smirk, Liddy tells that he served as the porter for Mr. Rosark's party, the hero's party. Veronica and Yido are both taken aback by this and inquire as to Liddy's sincerity. The focus transitions to Xanamund, who is cackling joyfully, pondering the incredible power that girl wields, which enabled her to elude him. Xanamund resolves that he must possess her. With the heavens as his witness, he vows to seize her life for himself. He bursts into laughter again, savoring the notion of it. The scene shifts back to Liddy and Veronica, who have finally arrived at the Dawn River. Liddy highlights the river and invites Veronica and Yido to take a glance. Upon hearing this, Yido inquires if it's the same one with the bridge. Liddy affirms, clarifying that it is referred to as the Indestructible Bridge. It was constructed at the request of the reigning monarch during that period. Many believed it to be unfeasible, yet with the assistance of talented craftsmen from various places, the bridge was finally completed after many years. Without glancing, Liddy instructs them to take a look at the culmination of decades of effort, the Great Dawn Bridge. However, both Veronica and Yido were taken aback to discover that the bridge was in ruins. Veronica, feeling anxious, told Liddy that she assumed the bridge had been demolished. Liddy responded that they were out of options and would need to swim across. In disbelief, Yido questioned whether Liddy was truly serious, noting that he would have to carry Veronica on his back if it came to that. He then inquired about who could have possibly done this, as it was meant to be the most formidable bridge around. Liddy was also pondering the situation with intrigue. Veronica then spotted a group of individuals and questioned whether they were trying to communicate something. Liddy responded that they might be from the nearby village. He used his hearing magic to eavesdrop on them. After that, he revealed that the individuals were warning to move away from the riverside. Suddenly, something surfaced from the river. Upon seeing the creature, Veronica cried out that it was a sea serpent. Yido exclaimed that it was astonishingly large, even for a sea serpent. Liddy concurred, stating he had never seen such a gigantic sea serpent before. Liddy expressed his belief that the creature might have been responsible for the destruction of the bridge. Out of the blue, a voice commanded them to surrender. Stunned by the occurrence, Yido exclaimed, "What? The serpent can talk." Veronica, looking nervous, clarified that it's telepathy. The serpent then spoke again, demanding the mana person to surrender. Anxious at this, Yido urged them to hold on, as the serpent was targeting Veronica. The snake lunged toward her, but Liddy intervened at the last moment and saved her. After that, Liddy reflects on how quickly the serpent moves for its size and considers that if it possesses telepathy, it could also perform spells. At that instant, Veronica spots something in the snake's gaze and yells that something is approaching. No sooner does she yell than the serpent unleashes its Aqua Nova attack towards them. Yaito gets hit a little by it, but Liddy seizes Yaito's arm and drags him to safety. Following that, Liddy flees from the crashing waves of water. Yaito cries out in dread, questioning what a sea serpent is doing there. Liddy responds that he has no clue either. All of a sudden, Liddy has a realization and swiftly pushes both Yaito and Veronica away to shield them. He discards them just as the serpent prepares to launch a body slam. Witnessing this, both Yaito and Veronica are struck with fear, worried that Liddy might face death. To the astonishment of both Veronica and the serpent, Liddy manages to halt the snake's attack. Yaito, in disbelief, exclaims, "What? Liddy actually stopped it. Where is he getting this kind of power and strength?" In that moment, Liddy urges Veronica and Yaito to flee. Yaito calls out in protest, urging Liddy not to act foolishly, arguing that they cannot abandon him. But Liddy yells once more, ordering them to escape, insisting he can hold the creature back somehow, but knows he can't defeat something of that size. Upon hearing this, both Veronica and Yaito tense up and call out for Liddy's assistance. Yaito comes to the realization that despite not being a fighter, Liddy has displayed extraordinary capabilities thus far. While it's true that Liddy has likely experienced countless battles in his role as an exceptional porter, he was honest when he claimed to still be a newbie adventurer without any means to defend himself. Meanwhile, the serpent inquires about Liddy's identity and challenges him to obstruct its path. Suddenly, magical circles begin to form around Liddy and the serpent. Recognizing the situation, Veronica identifies it as a magic circle tied to ancient sorcery and urgently shouts at Liddy to flee. Out of the blue, a Terra Needle spell strikes the serpent, injuring it and leaving Veronica and Yaito in shock. Liddy beams and mentions that he recognizes this spell. It was actually Ignore who cast the spell on the serpent. She angrily points out Rosart's careless comment, demanding that they couldn't have left Liddy unattended. Liddy is delighted to see Ignore present. Upon hearing Ignore's name, both Veronica and Yaito are taken aback, wondering if it could be the wizard from the hero party, the very Ignore they've heard of. Ignore then engages in a battle with the sea serpent, employing various spells to overcome it. During this commotion, the sea serpent manages to flee. Liddy rushes to Ignore and embraces her, expressing that it's been quite a while since they last saw each other. Ignore replies that she's pleased to see Liddy safe. Liddy then inquires about Ignore's purpose for being there. Ignore responds that she has a matter she needs to attend to in the vicinity. As they converse, Yaito realizes that Ignore is indeed the genuine wizard of the hero party, confirming that Liddy is truly the porter of the hero party, and it's not untrue. Yaito then turns to Veronica, asking if she caught that. However, Yaito notices that Veronica is completely captivated by Ignore's magical prowess. Veronica believes Ignore's spell casting is nothing short of artistry, as she wields strong spells in succession without uttering any incantations. With such meticulous precision, and without even forming a magical circle, there's no doubt about it. This girl is unquestionably the Lady Wizard, Miss Ignore. Ignore then asks Liddy to clarify his bond with the young girl, demanding an honest reply. Liddy states that Veronica is one of his companion adventurers. Ignore responds by declaring that Veronica is far too adorable to merely be one of his adventurer friends, so that can't be true. She continues by saying that Veronica appears to hail from an affluent background. Ignore then presses Liddy on whether Veronica is nobility and questions what he's doing taking her along. Liddy attempts to reply, but Ignore interrupts, insisting that it can't possibly be true. Ignore asserts that she truly doesn't want to believe Liddy would do something like that, and asks if he abducted Veronica from her home to run away with her. At that moment, Liddy proposes to Veronica and Yaito that they should give Miss Ignore some time to calm down, explaining that she is exceptionally intelligent, but occasionally tends to overanalyze and reach incorrect conclusions. Veronica acknowledges her understanding. Meanwhile, Ignore continues to fret about what she will say to Donis and Farah when she encounters them, claiming that it's all Rosark's fault. The scene transitions after a few minutes, where Liddy and Veronica provide Ignore with all the details. Once she comprehends the situation, Ignore informs Liddy that it seems he has taken on another demanding delivery task. Liddy grins and agrees, stating that it's the only thing he excels at. Ignore then inquires about how Liddy has been and whether his life as an adventurer has been enjoyable. Liddy replies that he cannot quite say if it has been good, but being an adventurer is significantly more challenging than he had anticipated. He then recounts to Ignore that they almost met their end recently at the hands of someone. Liddy forgets the name and asks Veronica for it. Veronica responds that if her recollection serves her right, the name was Xanamund. Upon hearing the name Xanamund, Ignore is taken aback and anxiously asks if they mean the noble assassin. Liddy confirms this, mentioning that he thinks Xanamund refers to himself that way. Ignore begins to feel anxious, telling Liddy that it's perilous and that he would face ruin if he encountered Xanamund again, especially since Liddy lacks any fighting abilities. Ignore emphasizes that even Liddy would struggle to confront Xanamund on his own, leading her to conclude that she must accompany Liddy, or he risks losing his life. Shortly after, Ignore has a realization and questions Liddy about whether Xanamund has already attacked them. If so, how are they still standing there? Liddy expresses his relief that Ignore posed this question. He then explains that it's entirely due to Veronica, as her incredible spell managed to repel Xanamund and save them. Upon hearing this, Veronica becomes flushed and asks Liddy what he's talking about. Amid her distress, Veronica yells at Liddy to stop, questioning whether he's trying to humiliate her in front of Lady Ignore. Ignore, intrigued, turns to Veronica and asks her what she means by that. Veronica replies that, unfortunately, it wasn't exactly a spell. She merely allowed her mana to spiral out of control. At that moment, she apologizes with regret and bows before Ignore. After listening to Veronica, Ignore inquires if she didn't claim to have studied it thicker, highlighting that it's evident the instructors there are outstanding. Veronica responds anxiously with a yes, stating that it's likely due to her lack of skill in magic. Ignore ponders for a moment before requesting that Veronica hold her hands. Veronica, feeling confused, holds Ignore's hand, unsure of what is about to happen. At that instant, Ignore employs a spell to uncover some information. After a minute, Ignore opens her eyes and declares that she had a feeling. No wonder the instructors were unable to teach Veronica anything. Liddy, intrigued, inquires about what Ignore discovered. Ignore says she has something to convey to both Veronica and Liddy. She informs Veronica that she possesses an excess of mana, but struggles with controlling her magic. Regarding Liddy, Ignore mentions that while he is an effective porter, he lacks the ability to defend himself against adversaries. With such a mismatched party, she questions Liddy's chances of progressing much further in his journey, let alone completing it. In fact, their journey was cut short, largely due to their encounter with Xanamund. At that moment, Yaito gazes at Ignore with curiosity, contemplating what she thinks of him. However, Veronica exclaims that no matter what, they must strive to achieve their set objective. Ignore cuts in, stating that she's going to assign them a task. Upon hearing this, everyone is taken aback and exclaims, "What? An assignment?" Ignore reassures them that by confronting their weaknesses, they'll be able to tackle their primary issues. She reminds them that, as previously stated, both individuals have significant shortcomings. She cannot allow Liddy to embark on such a perilous journey as he currently is. However, if Veronica and Liddy work together, they might balance out each other's weaknesses. Ignore then reveals that the task she has for them is to defeat the sea serpent within 1 hour. Liddy inquires if Ignore truly expects them to conquer the sea serpent. Veronica, surprised, questions how they could possibly accomplish that. Ignore, seemingly ignoring Veronica, turns to Liddy and asks if he is capable of doing it. It's evident that the challenge is far beyond his current abilities, but he is still eager to try. Regardless of how insurmountable the challenges may seem, he is determined to overcome anything that stands in his way on his quest. That resolve exemplifies what it means to be an adventurer. Ignore then addresses Veronica and asserts that she will clarify why Veronica struggles to manage her mana. But first, she questions Veronica about whether one of her ancestors was an elf. Upon hearing the inquiry, Yaito exclaims, "What? It's impossible for Veronica to be the princess of a human kingdom." He adds that if this information became public, it would lead to significant trouble. However, Veronica asks Yaito to hold on, clarifying that it is said the king from 4 generations ago, Ibnil the king of reconnaissance, was actually the offspring of an unidentified concubine from the previous king. Ignore interrupts to share that the concubine was, in fact, an elf, and children born of the union between humans and elves are always endowed with unique abilities. This easily clarifies Veronica's predicament. Intrigued, Veronica inquires if she genuinely possesses elven ancestry. Ignore moves closer to her and informs her that based solely on her mana levels, she likely surpasses even her, indicating that Veronica is quite fortunate. Ignore further explains that Veronica's struggle for control stems from her magic circle. Magic circles are formations created by one's mana to harness their magic. A standard magic circle cannot contain the vast amount of mana Veronica has, resulting in its breakdown and causing her spells to spiral out of control. Ignore mentions that typically she would guide Veronica in creating a more durable magic circle capable of handling her mana. However, it's something that can't be mastered in just one day. Veronica responds with sadness, expressing her frustration with herself, especially since Liddy is making an effort to assist her, and now she has Lady Ignore to teach her as well. Still, she feels ineffectual in contributing, which she finds to be incredibly demoralizing. Ignore smiles reassuringly and tells Veronica that she is capable. She explains that the source of her challenge lies within her blood and that elven problems require elven solutions. Ignore then instructs Liddy to pay close attention, emphasizing that their success in the mission depends on him. A puzzled Liddy asks, "What me?" The scene transitions to the riverside later on. As Liddy and the others gather by the shore, villagers from a nearby settlement warn them about the sea serpent. Liddy apologizes for the trouble he's caused, clarifying that they intend to confront the serpent. The villagers, taken aback, question his sanity. Ignore clarifies that the serpent consumes mana, so with Veronica in their group, it will likely appear again, which means they must remain alert. Veronica acknowledges that she comprehends the situation. At that moment, Yaito felt a bit annoyed with Ignore, expressing that he had believed she appeared to be a clever beauty, but her suggestion of such a perilous plan raised doubts about whether all elves possessed this level of cruelty. Ignore responds, stating that she believes she was genuinely kind in her guidance. In fact, she might have spoiled them a little too much, but could they truly fault her? After all, when an artisan identifies a diamond in the rough, they instinctively wish to enhance its brilliance, particularly when she had 2 substantial diamonds at her disposal. Suddenly, the sea serpent emerged, and upon noticing it, Ignore exclaimed that it was now the responsibility of Liddy and Veronica, urging them to give their utmost effort. Liddy then reminded Veronica of their plan and encouraged her to proceed. Veronica affirmed with a resolute yes as Liddy and Veronica embarked on their mission. Yaito leapt into the fray, stating he would assist them. He attempted to divert the serpent's attention away from Liddy, but his efforts were short-lived as the serpent swiftly forced Yaito to withdraw. Witnessing Yaito in distress, Veronica shouts in panic. Liddy clarifies that Yaito was buying them time by diverting the sea serpent's attention, so they shouldn't squander the chance he created. He then informs Veronica that he is preparing to take off. Veronica replies that she's also ready. In truth, Liddy was sprinting with Veronica on his back while she utilized her magic to carefully and slowly draw a line. The scene shifts back to a moment earlier when Ignore described their plan to employ a technique that elves typically introduce to children who are just starting to learn magic. Ignore explains that elves instruct youngsters to run in a circle as they create a large magic circle in the air. The capacity of a magic circle is determined by its strength and size. She notes that as long as the magic circle is sufficiently large, even a beginner can use it to perform powerful spells. Ignore also remarks that she would wager they didn't teach Veronica this at the Human Academy. After all, humans have never had enough mana to surpass a magic circle's limits. Regarding the size of the magic circle, Veronica would require it to be extraordinarily large to accommodate her vast amount of mana, so she needed to make it as big as possible. The scene returns to the present, where the sea serpent has caught wind of Liddy and Veronica. This causes Yido to become tense. The serpent lunges forward to strike at them, prompting Ignore to yell for Liddy to keep moving. She reminds him that a magic formation doesn't have to be a flawless circle. As long as the arc is traced in the air, it will suffice. Ignore also calls out to Veronica to stay focused and not to break the line, or the magic formation will collapse. Both Liddy and Veronica answer with right and begin to concentrate seriously. At that moment, Ignore grumbles to herself that Rosark is an unbearable fool, a crude jerk, and an absolute troublemaker who fails to recognize when to keep his jokes to himself. However, if there is one redeeming quality about Rosark, it's that he never tells lies. Meanwhile, Liddy is skillfully evading each of the serpent's attacks by zigzagging. He checks in with Veronica, asking if she's all right and if he's not swaying too much. Veronica assures him that she's fine. Liddy then shouts out words of encouragement, telling her that she can do it and pushing her to demonstrate the fruits of her labor, adding that she has dedicated the last 5 years to studying magic, which is about the same amount of time he has spent aspiring to be an adventurer. He trusts her, stating that if anyone has the capability to succeed, it's certainly Veronica. With unwavering confidence, Veronica announces that she will undoubtedly accomplish it. Meanwhile, the serpent starts to form a binding trap, causing Yido to grow tense as he realizes both Liddy and Veronica are ensnared and cannot simply evade its jaws. At that moment, Liddy yells at the serpent, declaring that it can't catch them so easily and warning it not to underestimate a porter of heroes. With that, he leaps into the air, activating his jump skill at level 96. Concurrently, Veronica hoped her magic lines would connect. At last, she managed to link the lines together, creating a complete circular pathway. Observing this, Yido was astonished that Veronica had finally accomplished it. With the serpent now hovering above the magic circle, Liddy exclaims that it's her turn to complete the task, wishing her the best of luck. Ignore praises Veronica for her first normal spell, telling her that there's no need for anything elaborate for her initial attempt. She encourages Veronica to start with the fundamentals. Veronica begins her incantation, "O spirits of ice, hear my pleas," summoning the chilling embrace to freeze all that stands before her. In that instant, the serpent gets ready to unleash its Aqua Nova attack. Noticing this, Yido tenses up, realizing the gravity of the situation as the serpent begins casting its own spells. At the same time, Veronica prepares her spell, Icy Breeze. Now it's a level 1 spell from Veronica against the serpent's level 49 spell. When their spells clash, Veronica feels anxious about what might happen. To everyone's astonishment, Veronica's spell completely encases the serpent in ice. After being frozen, the serpent topples into the river. Witnessing this, both Liddy and Veronica are filled with joy, realizing they have finally succeeded. Yido is also impressed that Liddy and Veronica managed to defeat the serpent. He even points out to Liddy that they can accomplish anything if they just put in the effort. Liddy replies that he doesn't think he contributed much at all, feeling that all he did was run around. Veronica encourages him to stop belittling himself, stating that they wouldn't have been successful without his help. Ignore also concurs with Veronica, noting that it would usually be unthinkable to set up such a large magic circle while under attack. She highlights that this accomplishment was made possible thanks to Liddy's outstanding footwork. Ignore then tells both Liddy and Veronica that they passed the assignment, commending them for effectively utilizing their unique strengths to compensate for each other's weaknesses. Both of them felt grateful and expressed their thanks to Ignore for her assistance. The villagers also felt joyous, as the sea serpent had transformed into a temporary bridge, which they viewed as a complete miracle. Others commended both of them, pointing out that they not only eliminated the serpent that was troubling the area, but also constructed a brand new bridge. The entire village expressed their gratitude to Liddy and Veronica for their aid. Upon hearing this, Liddy felt emotional, causing Yaito to chuckle and tease him, questioning why he was crying since a man shouldn't shed tears in public. Veronica quickly interjected, telling Yaito to cease his teasing of Liddy. Liddy laughed and apologized for his tears. Ignore then conceded that Rosark was correct. Liddy has a natural talent for this, and his optimism offers a beacon of hope to people. Ignore believes that Liddy is destined to become a remarkable adventurer. Once Calm returned, Liddy asked Ignore if she would like to accompany them for a bit. Ignore replied with a thank you, stating she would delight in joining them, but she was worried she couldn't because she had a small task to complete first. Veronica then stepped shyly in front of Ignore, saying that she truly wanted to express her gratitude to her. She expresses her gratitude, mentioning that she successfully performed her first spell. Veronica adds that she attributes her success to Ignore's excellent guidance and will cherish this moment forever. Ignore, feeling slightly indifferent to the praise, advises Veronica not to be overly pleased since she only covered the fundamentals. At last, Ignore says her farewells to everyone. She shares that she will be supporting them in their journey and urges them to have confidence in their actions, believing they will conquer any obstacles that lie ahead. Liddy and Veronica enthusiastically assure her they absolutely will. As Ignore walks away, she contemplates that she made the right choice by not involving Liddy and Veronica, the adventurers of the New Age, in this matter. She thinks to herself that it's irrelevant whether the Demon Lord still exists, as the issues of the previous era are for the seasoned adventurers to tackle. This indicates that the Demon Lord remains alive, and perhaps Ignore had intentions of taking Liddy with her, but she dismisses that thought. The scene transitions to the kingdom of Fenalicia, where the guard announces the time has come for a warm welcome of the acting queen, Princess Flara. Flara informs the crowd that she will be welcoming her fiancé and formally assuming the role of Queen of Fenalicia. The onlookers are taken aback, questioning whether Flara is truly marrying and ascending to the throne. Flara elaborates that, given the king's serious illness, she has decided that she can no longer fulfill his responsibilities and wishes to name a successor to the crown. Flara expresses her desire to see the king's dream realized before it's too late. Despite her lack of experience, she appeals to everyone for their support as the new queen of Fenalicia. Initially, the crowd remains quiet, but then they burst into cheers for Flara, wishing her long reign as queen. Following this, Flara introduces her fiancé, Mac. As Mac steps into the court, he commends Flara for her excellent delivery of the royal address. Flara beams at the compliment and thanks Mac in return. Mac then requests everyone to start the conference. Suddenly, a warrior from the kingdom arrives and demands that the conference be paused. Mac replies, stating that if he recalls correctly, the individual must be Sir Schwartz. Mac observes that it seems to be Schwartz's first visit to the capital in the past year. At that moment, Schwartz turns around and exclaims that he needs to know the significance of this. Schwartz asks everyone if they truly don't see the problem with Mac so audaciously occupying the king's throne. He demands to know who Mac thinks he is to act in such a manner, continuing by saying that first Mac arrives without any notice, and then introduces himself with a name that is unfamiliar to Schwartz. He then inquires what Mac believes he is. Schwartz then raises his voice, questioning the citizens of the kingdom as to why none of them have challenged Mac's behavior. He asserts that Mac's intentions are obvious, claiming that Mac is attempting to overthrow the king. In that instant, the crowd falls utterly silent, all staring at Schwartz without uttering a word. Taken aback, Schwartz asks what is going on and why everyone is gazing at him. Suddenly, Mac moves behind Schwartz and applauds, praising him for his remarkable statement and applauding his courage. Schwartz is taken aback, having not noticed when Mac had positioned himself behind him. Mac moves closer to Schwartz, placing a hand on his shoulder, and tells him that Schwartz stands apart from others who merely adhere to the hierarchy. He recognizes that Schwartz has the bravery to challenge anything he finds inappropriate. Mac adds that this is a valuable trait in times of war. Then, Without warning, he attacks Schwartz, asserting that someone like him has no role in a period of peace. After Schwartz is killed, Mac returns to the throne and sits down, inquiring if there are any further objections before proceeding. Sensing Mac's murderous intent, everyone grows fearful and remains silent. Suddenly, a girl named Marie attempts to speak up, stating she has news for the Majesty. Mac grins and asks her to share. She begins by apologizing for the disheartening news, explaining that the security team has not succeeded in apprehending Princess Veronica and Thicker. Marie reveals that Princess Veronica has escaped, and her current location is unknown. She voices her concern that Veronica may be heading back to the kingdom as they speak. Upon hearing this, the crowd reacts with surprise. Mac acknowledges that it seems to be a significant problem and asks Flara for her input. Flara, however, glares angrily at Marie. Noticing Flara's fierce stare, Marie becomes frightened and starts to tremble. Flara then inquires, "What about it?" Marie replies tensely, stating that she was simply presenting her report. Flara yells that she has no need for reports. What she seeks are results, and only results. She tells Marie that if she can't carry out such a straightforward task, she might as well look for someone else to take over her position. Upon hearing this, Marie is completely taken aback. In fear, she bows before Flara and says she will promptly organize another pursuit team. She begs Flara for one more opportunity, while Mac chuckles, commenting that it was quite the spectacle. Flara assures him that this is far from a performance, as she will definitely not permit Veronica to ascend to the throne. The scene shifts to Liddy and Veronica, who are engaged in fishing. Veronica is having a tough time catching any fish, leading Yido to suggest that she should quit, as not everyone is a natural at fishing. Veronica questions Yido if he's implying that she's incapable of fishing. In truth, she possesses only a level 1 fishing skill. Veronica expresses her belief that patience is the secret to becoming a successful fisher. She mentions that she read about it in a book, so she is confident. Yido then asks why she doesn't take a look at Liddy's catch. When Veronica glances over, she's astonished to see that Liddy has caught so many fish. Liddy cheerfully claims that he has caught a lot, attributing his achievement to his fishing skill, which stands at level 76. Additionally, Liddy also gathered many fruits due to his gathering skill, which is at level 71. He then prepared the meals using his cooking skill, rated at level 88. Liddy created a dish called longtail fish aquapazza with an abundance of vegetables, along with a vegetable soup. He then invited both Veronica and Yido to enjoy the meal. Upon seeing the dish, both Yido and Veronica were impressed, and after tasting it, they complimented it for being incredibly tasty. Liddy responded that he was pleased they enjoyed it. Yido curiously inquired where Liddy had picked up the skills to cook such a dish. Liddy explained that he primarily handled meals in the hero's party. He also mentioned that it brought back memories, as they used to prepare food with whatever ingredients they could find during their travels. Each person had their own distinct preferences, so it was challenging to create a suitable meal for everyone. Occasionally, Liddy would secretly include a bit of the foods they disliked to ensure a balanced diet. Yido, taken aback, asked Liddy if he was their nanny. Liddy responded that he believed Veronica would improve at fishing if she persevered. Yido admitted he wasn't aware of that. Veronica mentioned that she enjoyed spending all day inside the castle. She explained that she would read, study independently, and pretend to be a mage, while Flara was her complete opposite. Flara thrived on going out and exploring the world beyond the castle. Veronica recalled that there were times when Flara invited her to sneak out, and they would end up getting in trouble together. Veronica felt that if Flara had been with her, she would have quickly become an expert fisher. Tearfully, Veronica expressed her deep desire to reunite with Flara. Yido was taken aback by her emotional state, as Liddy gently placed a hand on her shoulder and comforted her, assuring her that she would soon see Flara. Liddy even pledged that he would take her home. Upon hearing this, Veronica felt grateful and kept gazing at Liddy. Yido also reminded Veronica that she could count on his assistance as well. Veronica felt overjoyed and apologized to both of them for causing them worry. She then revealed that she had made up her mind to meet Flara one last time, regardless of any obstacles. The scene transitioned to later that evening when Liddy and Veronica finally arrived at Zabier Mountain. Liddy pointed out and encouraged everyone to take a look at it. Yaito remarked that Liddy was behaving as though there was only one mountain, even though there were many. He questioned which one it was since they all appeared identical to him. Liddy replied tensely, "What? Just observe closely. It should be evident which one is Zabier Mountain. It has a sparkling aura surrounding it because Zabier Mountain is the home of Mr. Donis, the warrior from the Heroes Party." Liddy emphasized that it was not wrong to refer to it as a historical landmark. At that moment, Yaito looked perplexed because he couldn't see any aura. Liddy was filled with joy and expressed that he never expected to see Zabier Mountain so soon. Suddenly, Yaito grew tense for some reason and urgently told Liddy to hold on. Yaito implored Liddy not to claim that Zabier Mountain was actually home to a dragon's nest. Liddy firmly replied that was not true, insisting there shouldn't be any dragons in the Zabier Mountain region. Yaito gestured towards the dragons and questioned whether they were approaching them. Intrigued, Veronica asked Yaito if it was possible that those dragons were his friends. Yaito angrily replied no, absolutely not, and requested Veronica to refrain from associating him with those lowly creatures. He then clarified that those beasts were winged drakes, which were not very intelligent, so they wouldn't even be able to communicate with the dragons. Yaito mentioned that winged drakes were the only kind of dragons that traveled in groups, and a swarm like this typically indicated they were hunting. Veronica felt a bit uneasy seeing the large number of them. Yaito urged both Liddy and Veronica to flee immediately. However, in that moment, Liddy was astonished as he observed the entire mass of dragons. At that moment, Yaito exclaimed that they were in serious trouble as the winged drakes were headed right towards them. Even though winged drakes couldn't cast spells, they possessed vicious claws and a tearing beak on their thick skin, and they were most lethal when hunting in groups. Veronica proposed to Yaito that he should attempt to communicate with the winged drakes, believing they might respond to him since he was a dragon too. Yaito shouted back at Veronica, criticizing her for being foolish, reminding her that he had previously explained they weren't the same. He then yelled that they needed to escape quickly. At that instant, Liddy stood silently, which prompted Yaito to shout at him in frustration, questioning what in the world he is doing, as they needed to get Veronica out of danger. Liddy, feeling confused, wondered why the drakes were flying towards Zabier Mountain. Yaito, equally confused, asked how they could possibly know that. He noted that as far as he was concerned, those dragons just wanted to drive them from their territory. Liddy then asked him apprehensively not to imply that Mr. Donis's hometown was being attacked by those winged drakes. Out of nowhere, a winged drake lunged at Veronica, but Liddy swiftly intervened and evaded the attack. Yaito urged Liddy to move them away from the vicinity. Liddy remarked that he believed there were numerous dwarfs residing in Zabier Mountain, and if they headed that way, they would attract the winged drakes right to them. Veronica, upon hearing this, was taken aback. While Yaito anxiously shouted at Liddy not to claim he was planning to fight, Liddy confidently replied yes, stating they needed to confront the winged drakes immediately. Yaito nervously inquired if Liddy was actually serious about this. Liddy sidestepped another blow and asked Veronica if she could deploy her spell against the winged drakes, offering to assist her in forming a magic circle similar to the last time. Veronica, looking puzzled, questioned if Liddy was certain, explaining that it would require some time to establish a magic circle large enough for her spell. She further mentioned that there was a risk of one of the winged drakes crashing into the formation, which could render it ineffective. Liddy acknowledged her point and admitted he hadn't considered that, saying their last option was for Yaito to use his spell to blow them away. Yaito was taken aback and questioned if Liddy genuinely believed he could do that. Liddy, puzzled, inquired about what Yaito meant by claiming he couldn't. Yaito responded with anger, asking what Liddy was referring to and why. Eventually, Yaito resolved to clarify the situation for Liddy. He elaborated that maintaining a magic circle demands significant focus. He mentioned that conjuring one while in motion was typically a feat only experts could achieve. Truthfully, Veronica managing to do something like that was quite unusual, Yaito confessed that he lacked a powerful enough spell to shake off all the drakes pursuing them. Upon hearing this, Liddy tensed up and questioned what their next move should be. Liddy considered that both Yaito's and Veronica's spells were ineffective, meaning he needed to devise a solution. He felt frustrated with himself, wishing he had the ability to fight back independently, which would make things less complicated. Just then, a drake lunged at them from behind, causing Veronica to yell a warning to Liddy in a state of panic. Unfortunately, it was too late for Liddy to respond. To everyone's astonishment, Donis suddenly appeared and intercepted the attack. The drake sustained injuries from the collision, while Yaito and Veronica stared at Donis in bewilderment. Liddy was somewhat taken aback to see him again. Donis noted that Liddy seemed to be just as he remembered. Liddy expressed his joy at seeing Donis and mentioned it had been a while. Donis responded that he felt the same way, but their conversation would have to wait. He then turned and engaged in combat with the drakes. Observing the injured drakes, Liddy yelled to Donis that two of the drakes were starting to fly away. Donis instructed Liddy to brace himself and began running toward him. Liddy affirmed with a yes and positioned himself to take action. Yaito and Veronica watched in bewilderment, uncertain of Liddy's intentions. Just then, Donis leaped toward Liddy's hand, and Liddy harnessed his power to propel Donis into the sky. Once airborne, Donis struck one drake with a powerful blow and defeated the second by hurling his axe at it. Ultimately, he had brought down all the drakes. Veronica was left in awe, and Yaito was also impressed by the power of the hero's party warrior. At that moment, Liddy called out Donis's name and joyfully sprinted toward him. Donis positioned himself to catch Liddy in a hug and invited him over. When Liddy leaped toward Donis for a hug, Donis was abruptly pushed back by his force, but he quickly regained his balance. Observing this, both Yaito and Veronica felt a bit anxious. Donis then commented to Liddy that it warmed his heart to see him thriving. Liddy smiled back and agreed with Donis, expressing that he felt the same way. Yaito then approached and inquired if that was some sort of ritual. Moments later, the scene shifted to Donis and the others making their way to the dwarf village. As they traveled, Donis mentioned that while Liddy might be reliable now, he was quite the handful when he first started. Donis elaborated that Liddy used to flee screaming at the sight of any monster, regardless of how weak it was. Veronica responded that she wasn't aware of that, while Yaito surprisingly questioned if Liddy really was that easily frightened. Liddy, feeling embarrassed, asked Donis to stop making him look bad. Donis then conceded that their adventures alongside the hero had significantly warped his sense of normalcy. He recognized that he had overlooked the oddities within their group until he returned to society. Donis then specified that he was referring to Liddy, who was quite powerful by human standards. Upon hearing this, Liddy blushed and beamed broadly. Yaito, feeling tense, commented that he believed Donis's common sense might still be a bit off, mentioning that considering Liddy's ability to launch him several feet into the air, that was an understatement. Donis then bowed to both Veronica and Yaito, hoping they would maintain their friendship with Liddy. Veronica blushed and nervously urged Donis not to be so modest, expressing that they were happy to be friends with Liddy. Donis then informed them that this was where they would part ways. He pointed in a direction, clarifying that this path would take them to Phenolicia. At that moment, Liddy hesitated, but ultimately asked if he could assist Donis with the winged drakes. Donis replied that he had planned to handle it alone to avoid worrying Liddy, but it appeared Liddy had become quite perceptive after all. The scene then transitioned to later, when Liddy and the others finally arrived at Donis's hometown. Liddy eagerly inquired if this was truly Donis's hometown. Donis confirmed with a yes. He explained that it was a quaint little village where the majority of the residents spent their time confined within the mines or the forge to earn a living, stating that everyone contributed to the village in their own unique ways. Veronica responded that she found it hard to express, but it felt unusually quiet for a village. Donis explained that the quietness was due to the relentless attacks from the winged drakes that had been plaguing the area for the past week. The dragons would strike suddenly from the far reaches of the sky. Each time they appeared, they caused chaos in the village and injured the inhabitants. The warriors stationed there were largely ineffective since those monsters launched their strikes from above. Donis added that, fortunately, he had recently returned. Thanks to his presence, they had managed to limit the destruction. Nonetheless, the threat from the winged drakes persisted, forcing them to instruct the women and children to remain inside their homes until it was safe. Just then, Veronica spotted a small girl peeking out from behind a curtain. She smiled and waved, but the girl became anxious and quickly hid her face. Donis elaborated, mentioning that they still had no idea what was triggering those troublesome drakes to assault the village. Until they discovered the cause, they had to stay vigilant. He remarked that having even a hint about the reason would be a great starting point. Suddenly, Yido interjected, urging everyone to pause, as it seemed quite obvious. Both Liddy and Donis exchanged looks of confusion and curiosity, inquiring what he was implying. Yido angrily questioned their seriousness about not understanding. Veronica intervened, telling Yido that both Liddy and Donis were engaged in a serious discussion and she didn't comprehend why he was making jokes during such a critical time. Yido vehemently retorted that he was not joking. Suddenly, he recalled something and, feeling a bit sheepish, mentioned that he had forgotten humans weren't able to hear it, but to a proud Lexi dragon like him, it was unmistakably loud. Yido revealed that he could hear the cries of a drakeling approaching the village. Taken aback, Donis asked, "What? A drakeling in the village?" Yido affirmed, stating that indeed, the drakeling was calling for help, which likely explained why the winged drakes were attacking. It was likely the baby of the leader of their group. That was why they were gathering all their strength to search the village. Veronica happily commended Yido for his perception, but Donis interrupted, arguing that it didn't add up. He pointed out that no one in the village had spotted any sign of a drakeling. Yido replied that it was understandable no one had seen it since the drakeling's call was echoing from the mountain. He indicated a particular location, and when Donis glanced over, he realized it was the old mines. Donis mentioned that villagers used to explore those mines, but roughly a decade ago, a horde of monsters appeared, making it too perilous. As a result, the mines have remained shut since then. No one is aware of what has transpired there recently. It's very possible that the monsters have rapidly increased in number while it has been abandoned, and he suspects the interior has become their lair, resembling a dungeon. Veronica inquisitively asked if that meant what she's thinking. Donis affirmed this, clarifying that to prevent the winged drakes from attacking the village, they needed to enter the old mines and locate the drakeling. Upon hearing this, Liddy beamed with excitement, exclaiming that they were going to explore a dungeon. Donis responded affirmatively, noting that he could see Liddy's passion for dungeon diving had not diminished even a slightest over the years. In the following scene, Donis breaks the chain binding the entrance to the abandoned mine, while Liddy moves the rock that blocks the way in. Donis then instructs everyone to prepare, stating he will guide them as they enter. He also requests that Princess Veronica and Yido stay behind him, and tells Liddy he is relying on him to protect the rear. Liddy is taken aback and puzzled by this request. Dungeons tend to be intricate, resembling a maze, compounded by poor visibility. There is a significant risk that any adventuring party could be ambushed from behind. Therefore, members with lower defenses, like porters and mages, are usually positioned in the middle of the group. The role of the rear guard is vital, as they watch the group's back and stay vigilant for surprise attacks. Typically, the strongest fighters take on this responsibility, so Liddy was surprised rather than shocked that Donis wanted him to assume such an important position. With excitement, Liddy exclaims that he vows to protect everyone, even at the cost of his own life. Observing this, Yido curiously asks what has come over into Liddy. Donis commends Liddy for his enthusiasm and urges him to keep those sentiments close. Donis instructs everyone to proceed, as their objective for this dive is to find the drakeling. As they enter, Donis expresses his gratitude to Yido for the illumination magic, mentioning that carrying a torch in one hand would hinder his reflexes. Yido brags that they should all appreciate his presence, or else Veronica would be the only one casting spells. He humorously adds that they certainly don't want that, as the mine could potentially collapse on them. Veronica, overhearing this, urgently calls out Yaito's name, asking him to be quiet. Suddenly, Donis warns everyone to be cautious, as there's a monster nearby. Yaito, surprised, asks if there really is one already. But upon closer inspection, Donis breathes a sigh of relief and informs everyone that it's merely a common slime, which won't trouble them. Donis then encourages Liddy to give it a try. Liddy responds with an enthusiastic yes. Noticing this, Veronica curiously inquires if Liddy is truly going to fight. Yaito also questions whether Liddy can actually swing a weapon. Liddy then charges towards the slime with an axe ready to strike. But as he approaches the slime and prepares to attack, he suddenly realizes that he's holding no axe at all. Perplexed, he glances around and wonders where the axe has vanished. Yaito, taken aback, questions if Liddy truly was unaware that the axe slipped from his grip and embedded itself in the ceiling during his swing. In disbelief, Liddy exclaims, "What?" Just then, Donis yells for Liddy to watch out, but when Liddy turns to look, the slime has already launched an attack. Nevertheless, the slime is defeated after striking Liddy. Following that, Liddy falls into silence and utters nothing. Donis comments that at least the slime was vanquished this way, though he observes that Liddy's skills have not improved at all. Liddy responds with a sorrowful sorry. Donis then highlights that Liddy's primary weakness is his struggle to initiate an offensive. He adds that Liddy's combat abilities are nearly non-existent, as he couldn't even manage to use a weapon to strike. Yaito also adds that he assumes Liddy is essentially a master with a kitchen knife and a rod, but when it comes to handling weapons in combat, it's as if Liddy suddenly loses control of his hands. At that point, Donis remained silent, contemplating that Liddy's peculiar difficulty in attacking was unlikely to change anytime soon. He wished he could provide enough support to Liddy to help him get through it naturally, but they were simply short on time. So Donis reassured Liddy that it was all right if he couldn't strike. He just needed to improve his defensive skills. At that moment, Donis also presented a ring to Liddy. Curiously, Liddy asked what it was. Donis replied that he could wear it with his gloves. He just needed to slip it onto his finger. He explained that whenever Liddy desired to protect himself or someone else from harm, the mana contained in the ring would surely assist him. Stunned by this, Liddy asked if it was a magical item, expressing that he couldn't accept it. Donis insisted that Liddy should take it since it had been crafted specifically for him. Surprised, Liddy exclaimed, "For me?" Donis explained that dwarves are naturally gifted blacksmiths, and although he might be an exception who chose to explore the world in his youth, he remains a dwarf. Thus, even if he may not be the best dwarf for the task, he invested all of his smithing capabilities into creating that ring for Liddy. Upon hearing this, Liddy felt immense joy and embraced Donis in excitement. Liddy conveys his happiness and intends to cherish the ring for the entirety of his life. Donis commends Liddy, affirming that it's wonderful. Meanwhile, Veronica, observing the exchange, reflects on whether there is truly mana within the ring. However, she cannot detect anything emanating from it, leading her to question if her sensing abilities are just insufficient. Following this, they all continue their venture through the dungeon without encountering any significant problems. Throughout their journey, they battled various creatures and overcame them with assistance from Mr. Donis. Upon reaching a specific location, Yaito declares with certainty that this is where the Drakeling is concealed. Donis replies affirmatively, hoping everyone is prepared, and suggests they proceed. When Liddy enters the space, he is taken aback to find a tiny winged drake. In contrast, Veronica is delighted to spot the Drakeling, exclaiming about its cuteness. Veronica states she was unaware that Drakelings were such charming little beings. As she nears the Drakeling, Yaito warns her to back away, reminding her that it is still a monster. Yaito then ponders how a young Drakeling could have ventured so far into the dungeon. Donis mentions that he believes the room's ceiling is quite elevated, so he concludes that the Drakeling must have come crashing down. Yaito looks upward and observes that there is no breach in the ceiling, prompting him to inquire about where the Drakeling could have plummeted from. Liddy explains that if the dungeon structure is compromised, it naturally mends itself over time using mana, which suggests that the Drakeling likely sustained injuries while in midair and fell through the ceiling. The hole then healed itself before the Drakeling could regain the ability to fly, leaving it stranded here. Liddy observes a gap in the Drakeling's wings, indicating that it may require more time to fly unaided. Veronica then questions whether the small Drakeling's cries were the reason the winged drakes attacked the village. If that's the case, she ponders whether they should eliminate it. Donis admits that, honestly, that might be the simplest solution to their dilemma. He then turns to Liddy and asks for his opinion on the matter. Liddy shares that in his earliest recollections, he was already without parents and doesn't even know what they looked like. He continues by saying that this Drakeling deserves a chance. Liddy proposes that reuniting the Drakeling with its parents might resolve the issue. Donis admits he had a feeling Liddy would opt for that solution. Liddy eagerly volunteers to carry everything by himself. Suddenly, a loud cracking noise echoes from the ceiling, causing everyone to look up in bewilderment. Out of nowhere, a winged drake bursts through the ceiling, shattering the stone above. Upon seeing the winged drake, Yido and Veronica become tense, while Donis wonders about the origins of these scaled creatures and if they might be the child's parents. The winged drake stands in the way of the exit and emits a mighty roar. Liddy, noticing the winged drake, tightens up as it obstructs the entrance. Donis yells at Liddy to protect Princess Veronica. Liddy responds affirmatively, reassuring Donis that he will take care of it. Donis announces his intention to take down the winged drake. He leaps to strike, but upon landing the blow, he realizes it has no effect on the drake. He contemplates whether its defense is simply too strong. At that moment, the drake lashes out with its tail, sending Donis crashing into the wall with a loud thud. Seeing Donis hurt, Liddy and Veronica grow tense. The winged drake shifts its intense gaze towards Liddy and Veronica. Noticing this, Yido gets tense and tells Veronica that she needs to use her magic now. However, he quickly recalls that she can't, as they risk being buried alive. The winged drake gives a fierce roar, which causes Yido to stiffen. Meanwhile, Liddy is lost in thought, contemplating how to escape this predicament. He reflects that if he were even half the warrior Mr. Donis is, he might stand a chance against the winged drake himself. Suddenly, he hears Donis's voice encouraging him to utilize the ring. Observing that Donis is completely unharmed, Yido is taken aback and inquires how Donis managed to avoid any injuries. At that moment, Liddy realizes that while he might struggle to attack with the ring, he can certainly defend what matters to him. Donis assures Liddy that he will guide him on how to use the ring, so he should pay close attention. Liddy replies with an acknowledgement. Yido and Veronica both become thrilled, imagining how a magical ring created by a warrior from the hero's party could be effective. They are curious about the capabilities of this ring. Yido proposes that if it were merely an ordinary magic ring, it would probably only enhance his defense. However, since it was created by a warrior from the hero's group, he speculates whether it could create a solid barrier. Donis instructs Liddy to lift his arm to chest height and hold his hand out in front of him. At that instant, the winged drake charges at Liddy, which causes Veronica to become anxious. Yido is also concerned since Liddy is still unprepared. Donis then tells Liddy to defend himself. In response, Liddy thrusts his hand forward, and the winged drake is abruptly slammed against the wall. Witnessing this, both Veronica and Yido are stunned. Even Liddy is taken aback and exclaims that it was an incredible defense. Upon hearing this, both Yido and Veronica grow even more tense. Veronica calls out to Liddy, stating that no matter how he views it, that definitely seems like an offensive move. But Donis interjects, asserting that it was an impeccably executed defense. Liddy clarifies that he simply countered the attack from his opponent, a fundamental defensive action. He joyfully states that the defensive technique Mr. Donis taught him is remarkably powerful. Yido interjects, expressing that he didn't believe it functioned in that manner. Liddy once more expresses gratitude to Donis for the ring he crafted for him. Donis then clarifies that the ring does not actually contain any mana. Liddy, taken aback, asks what Donis reveals that he has been troubled for a significant time about how he could teach Liddy self-defense when Liddy was incapable of wielding a weapon. Thus, he proposed a solution. If Liddy couldn't launch an attack, they would simply need to provide him with an alternative form of defense, a particularly formidable one. Donis further explains that whenever Liddy defends himself, he instinctively restrains his strength. Therefore, he gifted the ring to Liddy to motivate him to unleash his full power, and the outcome was evident. It represented a flawless defense, or perhaps they could describe it as surpassing traditional defenses. Liddy even referred to it as his new skill, Super Extreme Defense. Liddy ultimately gained the auxiliary skill, Supreme Defense. Donis informs Liddy that he has succeeded, and henceforth, he is a genuine warrior. Upon hearing this, Liddy feels ecstatic and expresses his thanks to Donis. Liddy dashes toward Donis, embracing him, leaping up and wrapping his arms around him with all his might. Donis steadies himself to avoid being pushed back by the force of the hug. Observing this, Yido inquires if they need to do this every single time. Meanwhile, Veronica joyfully shares that she feels very pleased for Liddy. Yido notes that he suspected the child was not normal, but he was surprised when Liddy used his bare hands to smash a giant winged drake into the wall as soon as he learned how to attack. Liddy explains that it was not an attack, but rather a defensive move. Donis agrees with Liddy, calling it an impressive defense. Feeling tense, Yido reluctantly agrees with their explanation. The drakeling begins crying again, prompting Yido to realize they had almost forgotten about it. Veronica reminds them that they still need to return the drakeling to its nest. Anxious, Yido approaches the winged drake, mentioning that they had incapacitated the parent who was supposed to care for the drakeling. Yido checks the winged drake for signs of life after Liddy's attack. Suddenly, the winged drake opens its eyes, causing Yido to become nervous. He quickly retreats, warning everyone to be cautious because the winged drake is still alive. Yido points out that the winged drake is unharmed and asks Liddy to try attacking it again. Liddy insists that his actions were solely in self-defense. Much to everyone's surprise, the winged drake abruptly seized the drakeling in its mouth and flew off. Observing this, Liddy inquired about the drake's escape, to which Donis replied in the negative, indicating he was uncertain. Upon taking flight, the winged drake began to howl in agony. Hearing this, Liddy became puzzled and speculated if the drake had emitted a scream. Veronica suggested that the winged drake might be extremely angry. Yido interjected, stating it was not just an ordinary scream. Intrigued, Veronica asked Yido if he could comprehend it. Yido then urged everyone to contemplate the situation, reminding them of how the drakeling's cry had lured a group of A-class winged drakes to the village. Expressing concern, Yido remarked that the bait drakeling was attempting to attract its flock towards them. He anxiously warned that at least 24 winged drakes were approaching. Shortly after, Yido exclaimed that he suspected there were even more, with a large horde of winged drakes headed straight for Zabir Mountain. Veronica nervously inquired what they should do now. Yido reassured her, stating he believed they would be safe with Donis and Liddy by their side, but expressed worry for the villagers hiding in the village. Veronica was frightened and expressed her horror upon hearing what Yido said. She encouraged Donis and Liddy to take action quickly to minimize the potential damage. However, to their surprise, they found Liddy and Donis casually having tea. Yido, in a tense tone, asked what they were doing. Liddy explained that the tea made from howl flowers is good for warming up the throat. Yido angrily exclaimed that warming up the throat was not a priority when the village was under threat of attack. Donis reassured them not to worry, mentioning that he had already instructed Liddy on what to do. His role as a teacher was now over, and it was time for him to become a warrior once again. He believed that his strength as a warrior would shine the most when facing a larger number like these winged drakes. In the village, people were fearful as they witnessed the winged drakes approaching for another attack. The elders advised everyone to evacuate the women and children. Suddenly, one of the mutated winged drakes spotted Donis, standing on the ridge, commanded the others to attack him. Donis bravely stood in front of the winged drakes. Upon witnessing the immense size of the horde, Veronica was shocked. Yaito, also visibly anxious, questioned Liddy about Donis' well-being while facing the horde alone. Liddy reassured him that Donis would be fine. As Donis suddenly froze and his body contorted oddly, Liddy expressed his concern about them watching him battle from such close proximity. Out of nowhere, Donis let out a strange, powerful roar, which is his combat skill called War Cry at level 88. The sound startled the winged drakes, surprising both Yaito and Veronica as well. The entire village trembled at the deafening noise. Yaito anxiously inquired about the unbearable noise hurting his ears, while Veronica, equally astonished, described it as incredible. As the winged drakes began to fly away, Veronica noticed the drakeling falling and alerted everyone. Yaito nervously questioned if the war cry had caused the drakeling to fall, fearing it would crash to the ground. Amidst the chaos, Liddy stealthily maneuvered along the mountain to catch the falling drakeling. Upon catching the drakeling, Liddy joyfully remarked that he was relieved and happy that he had arrived just in time. Yaito was impressed by how quickly Liddy descended to the bottom of the mountain. Liddy displayed his usual agility. Suddenly, Yaito spotted something and urgently told Liddy to look behind him as the mutated winged drake was approaching. As Liddy turned around, he saw the winged drake roaring, but to everyone's surprise, it was only holding the drakeling in its mouth. Witnessing this, Liddy grinned and shared a moment of eye contact with the winged drake. Following that, the drake flew away without causing harm. Yaito, taken aback and puzzled, inquired about what had just happened. Donis explained that the parent of the drakeling was a variant, a creature that had evolved to possess greater abilities than others of its kind. Its heightened intelligence likely allowed it to comprehend that Liddy had rescued his child. Liddy approached and asked if everything was all right. Yaito was amazed by how quickly Liddy had returned. Donis then mentioned that the drakeling had rejoined its group, so there should be no need to worry about further winged drake attacks. When Liddy heard this, he asked, "So that means?" Donis replied that it meant they had achieved their goal. Upon hearing this, Liddy, Yaito, and Veronica began to celebrate. The focus then shifted to a few minutes later, when the village elder named Relic expressed his gratitude as the elder of the village to Donis and his companions for rescuing the village from the winged drakes. While shedding tears, Relic couldn't believe that Donis had grown into such a reliable adult since leaving the village. Curious, Liddy asked Donis about the identity of the old man, to which Donis explained that he was the village elder. Donis reassured Relic that he was now too old to cry. Yaito was surprised to notice that Relic and Donis practically looked the same. A young girl approached Veronica, giving her a hug and thanking her for their rescue. Feeling modest, Veronica mentioned that she didn't think she did much. The girl joyfully shared that her mother said she could now play outside, all thanks to Veronica. Veronica smiled, patted the girl's head, and wished all the children a safe and enjoyable time playing outside. The girl cheerfully replied with an okay, and pledged to remember to stay safe. The next day, as Liddy and Veronica were departing, Donis inquired if they were leaving. Liddy confirmed that they were. Liddy then expressed her gratitude to Donis for everything, especially for teaching him self-defense and giving him the ring. Donis responded that there was no need for thanks, and that he should be the one grateful to all of them. He thanked them all, showing his appreciation for their help in protecting his village. Donis then assured them that if they ever needed assistance, they could simply call for him, and he would come to their aid no matter where they were. After everyone had left, Donis mentioned that he thought it was time for Ignore to stop hiding behind the tree. Upon hearing this, Ignore was surprised and came out, questioning whether Donis truly knew, and admitting that she wanted to surprise him for once. Ignore went on to explain that she had magical cloaking abilities, which is why Liddy and the others had not noticed her. Donis then told Ignore that he could sense the presence she was giving off from a mile away. Ignore asked Donis to clarify what presence he was referring to, and then chastised him for talking nonsense instead of explaining in a way she could understand. Ignore then pointed out that she had recently bid farewell to Liddy and others, and it wouldn't look good for her reputation to see them again so soon, particularly because she was the only one with her mana projection there. Upon hearing this, Donis acknowledged that mana projection was a powerful spell, indicating that Ignore must have a significant reason for using it. Ignore then confessed that she required Donis' assistance as a party member. Donis inquired about the specific help she needed. Ignore explained that a looming evil threat was approaching rapidly, and she couldn't dispel it alone. She also expressed her reluctance to involve the kids in the dangerous situation. After their conversation, she planned to seek out Farah and Rosark to reunite the heroes' party. The focus then turned to Xanamon, who had finally caught up with Liddy and Veronica. He apologized for being late, but reassured them that they had nothing to worry about because he was determined to take Veronica's life with his own hands. The attention returned to Liddy, who was giving a piggyback ride to an unidentified girl. The girl giggled and commented on how enjoyable it was to be carried on his shoulders. Liddy reminded her to hold on tightly and let him know if she felt unwell. The girl gave him an okay and complimented him for being very kind. Liddy humbly stated that he was just doing what anyone else would do in his position. The girl then apologized to Veronica for taking her seat, expressing regret that Veronica had to walk instead. Veronica kindly reassured the girl not to worry, mentioning her injury as the reason for her to walk. The girl was impressed by Veronica's kindness and accepted her offer gladly. Excitedly, the girl urged Liddy to continue on their journey. Liddy playfully remarked that he wasn't a horse. The girl introduced herself as Mia, revealing that Liddy's group had encountered her after she hurt her leg. Mia had narrowly avoided a dangerous situation with a monster attack, escaping with her life. She mentioned that she was headed to see her grandmother. Veronica reacted with horror, to which Mia acknowledged the terrifying experience, but expressed excitement about having company for the rest of her journey. Liddy assured Mia that they would keep her safe since they were already traveling in the same direction. Mia laughed, joking that she felt like a quest item. Yaito, however, was concerned about the risks involved in Mia's solo journey, especially considering past encounters with adversaries. Yaito observed Veronica's unease and asked if she shared his suspicions. Veronica agreed, pointing out Mia's close proximity to Liddy. Despite her reservations, Veronica insisted she didn't mind Mia's presence, but worried that Liddy might feel uncomfortable. Upon hearing this, Yaito came to the realization and informed Veronica that she was simply feeling jealous and that she was now a grown-up. Embarrassed, Veronica vehemently denied this claim. Mia and Liddy exchanged glances with Veronica, who then smiled and waved her hand to dismiss the situation. Liddy suggested that they had walked quite a distance and should have their meals. Upon opening the bag of fruits, Liddy noticed that they didn't have much fruits. He then proposed to Mia that they gather some more fruits from the trees nearby. Yaito intervened and offered to help Liddy with the task. However, Liddy graciously declined, saying that he and Mia could manage on their own. Yaito felt uneasy when Liddy gave his approval, fearing that Liddy might encounter some trouble. As they ventured into the forest to pick fruits, Mia bid them farewell and reminded them to take care of their belongings. Meanwhile, Veronica anxiously pondered whether Liddy was truly eager to accompany Mia. In that moment, Yaito sensed that Liddy also had reservations about Mia. He hoped that Liddy would be cautious, considering they were unaware of the potential danger Mia could pose. Upon entering the forest, Liddy proposed to Mia that they should separate to search for fruits and be sure to pick only the ripe ones. Mia agreed with a nod. As they approached the edge of a ridge, Mia urged Liddy to look over it because she spotted something. Liddy walked over, glanced down, and inquired about what she had noticed. Without warning, Mia pushed him towards the ditch, thanking him for her care and bidding him farewell. After throwing Liddy into the ditch, she grinned with satisfaction, amused that he was supposed to be guarding the princess. She thought that perhaps peace had softened their minds. She felt it was excessive to be cautious of him. She even believed Liddy was overly anxious. Mia was pleased that Veronica's bodyguard was no longer a concern, as now she only needed to kill the princess before heading home. Suddenly, to her surprise, Liddy reappeared on the cliff. Mia asked Liddy in astonishment how he managed to climb back up. Liddy chuckled and assured her he would explain. Liddy recounted how he had managed to stop his fall by impaling a branch into the rock and then using the force of the fall to propel himself back up. Mia was taken aback by this revelation and exclaimed that he must be joking. She questioned his humanity and why he had a branch with him. The scene shifts to past conversation where Rosark explained to Liddy that it is an adventurer's responsibility to assist those in need, as turning away from a troubled stranger could prevent them from receiving future requests. However, Rosark warned that not everyone they encountered would be honest travelers, as some may have malicious intentions such as deception or harm. Farah jokingly inquired if Rosark was speaking from his personal experience with women, to which he admitted to a past incident with a guild member named Anya. Despite this, Rosark advised Liddy to always be prepared for any scenario and not to discriminate when offering help. A true adventurer, he emphasized, must be ready for the worst and capable of finding a solution even when things go wrong. As the conversation shifted to the present, Liddy revealed that he had harbored suspicions about Mia since their first meeting and had prepared himself accordingly. Mia was enraged by what happened. Liddy then inquires why Mia was attempting to kill Princess Veronica. Mia responds with irritation and questions why he would even ask. The atmosphere around Mia suddenly shifts, causing Liddy to become curious. Transforming into her demon form, Mia yells that if Liddy cannot understand by now, then his mind must be seriously deteriorated. Shocked, Liddy questions Mia about being a demon and wonders how it is possible since the demon lord was dead. Mia does not reply and instead attacks Liddy directly with a punch. Liddy is flung towards the ditch once more, but surprising Mia, he retrieves a rope and throws it towards a tree branch, securing himself. Witnessing this, Mia is taken aback. Mia was livid with Liddy, describing him as one of those stubborn children. She declares that she will ensure he is thoroughly defeated. Upon hearing strange noises emanating from the forest where Liddy and Mia went, Veronica nervously inquires about it and asks if something has happened to Liddy. Yaito responds that he is unsure, but they need to be vigilant of their surroundings as something may be approaching. He believes his instincts were accurate and worries about Liddy's well-being. Suddenly, a figure descends from the sky and Yaito is shocked to see that it is Liddy. Both Yaito and Veronica gaze at Liddy with tense and puzzled expressions. Liddy warns them to be cautious as Mia is targeting Veronica's life. Mia appears and attacks Veronica, but Liddy intervenes and swiftly evades the strike. Following this, everyone faces each other. Veronica remains bewildered, while Yaito stares at Mia in disbelief and questions her identity and what has happened to her. Liddy explains that Mia is a demon. Yaito is astonished and questions why a demon is pursuing them and how this could be happening when the demon lord was dead. Liddy acknowledges that Yaito is correct, and it doesn't make sense, as demons are meant to be extinct now that the demon lord is no more. Liddy explains that demons are intelligent monsters with powerful magical abilities, often resembling humans. They derive their powers from the great demon lord, who had been defeated by the hero, causing the extinction of demons. Perplexed by this situation, Liddy questions Mia about her identity. Mia apologizes for not providing answers. Liddy speculates that Fenelish's ruler might be involved in the survival of demons. This revelation shocks both Veronica and Yaito. Yaito questions Liddy's statement, insisting that a peaceful kingdom like Fenelisha would not collude with demons. Veronica recalls the assassination attempt on her and the lack of communication from the kingdom, adding credibility to Liddy's theory. Suddenly, Mia declares that she was tasked with killing Princess Veronica, but now intends to eliminate all three of them. With that, Mia attacks Liddy, who defends himself against her. Mia acknowledges Liddy's skill in battle and questions why he is not fighting back, suspecting he is hiding something. Deep inside, Liddy believed that Mia was strong and that they wouldn't succeed this way, so he needed to take action. He made the decision to withstand the initial attack and planned to defend himself when Mia came in for the final blow using Supreme Defense. At that point, Mia informed Liddy that she wanted to share something with him. She mentioned that he had been talking about being knowledgeable about demons, but she doubted he knew about this particular aspect. She clarified that demons can take on human form through two methods. In the meantime, Liddy was prepared to defend himself with Supreme Defense at the right moment. Mia elaborated that the first way is by changing their own body and the second by transferring their consciousness into a human's body. Liddy was all set to use Supreme Defense. But Mia suddenly confessed that she belonged to the latter group, and that the body she inhabited was that of an innocent village girl. After hearing this, Liddy hesitated in his attack. In that moment of distraction, Mia managed to strike him. Witnessing this, both Yaito and Veronica tensed up. Liddy writhed in pain on the ground. Mia mocks Liddy, questioning if he is too sympathetic towards a girl he doesn't even know, while he should be focused on saving himself. She also reminds Liddy that Veronica's fate is now in his hands. Yaito advises Veronica to flee as he attempts to hold off Mia. However, Veronica refuses to run. She insists on fighting alongside Liddy against Mia, despite Yaito's pleas for her to escape. Mia taunts both of them, urging them to surrender as she threatens to end Veronica's life. As Mia charges towards Veronica with the intent to kill her, Veronica closes her eyes in fear. Suddenly, Xanamond appears out of nowhere and shields Veronica from Mia's attack. Mia demands to know who Xanamond is, while Yaito expresses shock at his sudden appearance. In response, Xanamond said that he is one who is going to kill Princess Veronica. Mia once again shouts and asks Xanamond about his identity. Yaito is surprised and questions whether Xanamond truly saved them. Xanamond responds by reiterating his belief that the princess's life belongs to him. Veronica is shocked to hear this and wonders if Xanamond intends to kill her. Yaito yells at Xanamond, expressing his lack of knowledge about Xanamond's intentions, but warning him against facing the demon. Xanamond inquires curiously as to why this is the case. Yaito explains that demons possess immense physical and magical strength, surpassing that of ordinary humans, making it perilous to engage in direct combat unless one is a skilled warrior. Xanamond remarks on the newfound information. Mia expresses gratitude to Yaito for clarifying the situation. She advises Xanamond to flee now that he understands the danger she poses, but suddenly changes her mind and charges towards him, declaring that it is too late for him to escape and that he is doomed. Xanamond responds confidently, stating that he believes he will be fine and complimenting human intelligence. This angers Mia, who questions whether demons lack intelligence. In her fury, she launches an attack against Xanamond. Xanamond evades her blow and remarks that Yaito's claims about Mia's extraordinary strength and speed seem to be accurate. Mia yells at Xanamond that he's too late to repent for his actions. As she strikes at him, Xanamond defends himself with his sword. Both of them traded blows and sword strikes, engaging in a fierce battle. Yaito and Veronica were amazed by the intensity of their fight. Veronica was on the verge of speaking, but before she could, Liddy approached from behind and commented on the impressive battle unfolding before them. Upon hearing this, Yaito and Veronica were momentarily stunned. Yaito, taken aback, questions Liddy's survival. Liddy confirms that he is indeed alive. Yaito then queries how this is possible, noting Liddy's seemingly perfect condition and speculating on the composition of his body. In response, Liddy explains that he briefly lost consciousness, apologizing to Veronica for putting her in danger. Veronica reassures him, expressing relief that he is unharmed. Liddy then expresses uncertainty about Xanamond's allegiance, but recognizes that it is advantageous for them, suggesting they make use of the situation to escape. Yaito shouted that it would be best for Liddy to observe the fight unfolding. Confused, Liddy asked what was going on. Yaito reminded Liddy of their past experiences, mentioning that he had only been defeated twice, first by Xanamond's surprise attack, and then by Mia's unexpected move of using a hostage. Liddy had lost in those instances due to factors beyond just fighting ability, so by watching Mia and Xanamond fight, he could learn to overcome those weaknesses. Yaito also mentioned that the demons seemed to be trying to prevent Veronica from returning to Phenolicia, so they needed Liddy to become as strong as possible. Liddy expressed concern that it could be risky. On the other side, Xanamond and Mia continued their intense battle, exchanging punches and sword strikes. Mia urged Xanamond to give up fighting. Observing the fight, Veronica was impressed by Xanamond's skill in holding off Mia. Liddy remarked that Xanamond's success was more due to skill than brute strength. When Mia throws a punch, Xanamund not only raises his sword to block her attack, but also drives his sword into hers to reduce the force of her strike, thus fighting her on an equal footing with exceptional skill and concentration. Mia admonishes Xanamund for attempting to defeat her by just deflecting her attacks and warns him that once she wears him down, he will realize his true vulnerability. Suddenly, a blast erupts inside Mia. Confused, Veronica inquires if it was an explosion. Veronica is amazed that Xanamund can cast a spell without a magic circle or incantation, a feat even a skilled mage would struggle to achieve in the heat of battle. To everyone's surprise, Mia quickly recovers and attacks Xanamund, claiming the blast did not even faze her. Xanamund manages to block the attack, but feels the impact and is pushed back slightly. Liddy is surprised and puzzled by Mia's apparent lack of injury from the attack. Veronica explains that casting a spell without a magic circle or incantation significantly weakens its power. The magic spell did not cause any substantial harm to Mia. She mentioned that it caused a sensation of heat, but did not cause pain. When Mia looked up, she was shocked to see that Xanamund had disappeared. Initially, she wondered if he had fled, but deep down she knew he wouldn't do that as it would jeopardize Veronica's life. Suddenly, a tree near Mia broke and started to fall towards her. Veronica tensed up upon witnessing the tree breaking. Once Mia understood the situation, she managed to break the tree into smaller pieces before it could harm her. However, more trees began to break and fall onto her. Observing this, Mia questioned if it was a strategic move by Xanamund. She started to defend herself against the falling trees and taunted Xanamund for backing down after realizing the power gap between them. She boldly stated that Xanamund's hiding in the trees indicated cowardice among the assassins. Out of the blue, an arrow suddenly flew and struck Mia's hand. Mia winced in pain from the arrow, while Liddy was surprised to identify it as a magic arrow. He comprehends that Xanamund had been targeting that all along. In that instant, Mia experiences a rush of joy, believing that Xanamund made a mistake as she now knows where the arrow has came. Without hesitation, she rushes in that direction to confront Xanamund. However, upon her arrival, Xanamund was creating a magic circle and saying something to start it. Immediately, the attack known as Dragonic Blaze hit Mia. The blaze started to burn Mia. Witnessing this, Liddy was impressed, thinking that Xanamund purposely used a weaker spell to deceive Mia into believing his magic posed no real threat to her. By employing this tactic, Xanamund caused Mia to lower her guard and then unleash his full magical power. Liddy acknowledged that Xanamund was not only adept physically, but also talented in magic. Conversely, Mia, now severely wounded, felt despair as she was immobilized and feared she might die at this rate. At that moment, Xanamund moved behind her, causing her to become tense. Xanamund informed Mia that her time as a demon had come to an end. He then attempted to attack her with his sword, causing her to feel scared. However, at that moment, Liddy intervened and asked Xanamund to stop. Upon hearing this, Xanamund stopped his attack. Liddy clarified that Mia's body actually belonged to a young villager, meaning that if Xanamund proceeded, he would also be killing an innocent girl. Xanamund agreed reluctantly and angrily inquired, "What else?" Witnessing this, Liddy trembled. Xanamund then mentioned that he could see Liddy possessed an exceptionally kind heart. Nevertheless, he pointed out that Liddy's excessive kindness was the reason why he failed to protect the princess. Yato agreed with Xanamund upon hearing this. Unlike Liddy, Xanamund was a battle-hardened assassin, whereas Liddy has a heart, but Xanamund has none. While they were having a conversation, Mia was endeavoring to regain her strength and heal from her injuries. Meanwhile, Xanamund inquired to Liddy whether he was aware that when a demon possesses a human body, that body is already dead. Xanamund elaborated that Mia was a type of mimicry demon. Essentially, Liddy had fallen completely for the lies that Mia had spun. Upon hearing this, Liddy fell into silence, while Yato shouted back that Xanamund only realized this after the fact, and they could not simply kill Mia without considering the possibility that the girl was still inside. Xanamund questioned whether Mia's attempts to persuade them were motivated by concern. If Mia was truly a parasite, it would have taken control of the body from the onset. Xanamund expressed his certainty that Mia was not being truthful. He also pointed out to Liddy that he was naive, both as a human and as a warrior. Further, he reminded Liddy of his role as a simple porter and advised him to stay in his lane. When Yaito demanded an explanation for why Liddy was being lectured by their adversary, Xanamund instructed him to be silent. Yaito soon noticed that Mia was attempting to rise to her feet. Suddenly, Mia stood up and hurled a rock at Xanamund, who effortlessly defended himself. Mia then lunged at Xanamund, prompting him to prepare to defend himself. However, to everyone's surprise, Mia did not aim for Xanamund. Instead, she sprinted towards Veronica, informing Xanamund that she would deal with him later, as her current focus was solely to kill Princess Veronica. Witnessing this, both Veronica and Yaito became frightened. At that moment, Xanamund questioned whether this was the extent of Mia's abilities, considering he had ample time to cast a spell. Suddenly, Liddy steps forward to shield Veronica. Mia then challenged Liddy, inquiring if he was prepared to die. This time, Liddy activated his supreme defense, pushing Mia back until she collided with some trees and vanished into the distance. Yaito and Veronica were relieved by this turn of events. Liddy acknowledged that his inexperience had made him vulnerable and admitted that maybe he was still just a novice, which motivated him to continue learning and striving to become the greatest adventurer in the world as quickly as possible, just like a legendary hero. Liddy mentioned that adventurers must approach the facts objectively and make impartial judgments. He then went to Xanamund and expressed his gratitude for the information he had provided. Xanamund did not respond, but Yaito called out to Liddy, reminding him that he might be overlooking something. Confused, Liddy inquired what he was missing. Yaito accused Xanamund of being an assassin sent to kill Veronica. Liddy acknowledged that there was still much for him to learn from his enemies. Yaito criticized Liddy for his apparent greed, stating that it was astonishing. Yaito emphasized that it was not the time for jokes now, that the dangerous demon had been dealt with and Xanamund was approaching them. As Xanamund approached them, they all stood nervously in silence. However, to their surprise, Xanamund knelt down in front of Veronica and revealed he had came for her. The scene then transitioned to a later moment where Liddy and Veronica were cooking together. Xanamund joined them and mentioned that he had not been able to locate Mia, speculating that it may have fled. Veronica was taken aback to hear that Mia had managed to escape despite being injured. Xanamund acknowledged that the wound should have been serious, but he assumed the demon had great resilience. Liddy then offered Xanamund a bowl of Moridori soup, which he enjoyed and complimented Liddy's cooking skills. Yaito disagreed, saying it wasn't a compliment. Veronica asked Xanamund to explain everything to them, but he initially hesitated, stating that the information was meant only for the princess's ears. That's why he tried to kill Liddy earlier. However, he found Liddy to be somewhat trustworthy, so he decided to share in his presence. Yaito angrily confronted Xanamund for his previous actions, demanding a more apologetic attitude. Xanamund revealed that he was from the Urdesh barony, a family devoted to assassinating those who opposed the royal family. He explained that assassination was still a significant part of their work, earning him the moniker of the noble assassin. One day, he was summoned to the throne room by the royal family. The setting changed to the past, where Xanamund enters the throne room. Upon his entrance, he was taken aback to see an unfamiliar individual and questioned the identity and reason for that person occupying the throne as if it belonged to him. Flara then stood up and instructed Xanamund to eliminate the first princess, Veronica. Upon hearing this, Mac chuckled and inquired if it wasn't odd for a princess to request the killing of another princess. Xanamund asserted that he was simply a representative of the royal family and did not harbor unnecessary feelings. Flara commended him for his response and handed him a letter. Xanamund, curious, asked about the contents of the letter. Flara disclosed that it was a permit for travel, clarifying that Princess Veronica was currently in Thicker, thus he needed to go there quickly. Additionally, Flara stipulated that if Veronica opted to remain in Thicker, that was acceptable, but if she tried to leave for Fenalicia, he had to kill her promptly. The scene transitioned back to the present, where Veronica questioned Xanamund in disbelief if Flara truly instructed him to end her life. Xanamund remained silent, offering no response. Veronica then exclaimed that it was absurd, maintaining that Xanamund either misunderstood or was outright lying. Xanamund suggested that perhaps Veronica was overly confident in her beliefs, but he thought that killing the first princess would bring Flara closer to the throne, which he believed was a strong enough motive. He also noted that it had been 5 years since Flara and Veronica had seen each other, and people can change a lot in that time. However, Veronica vehemently denied that such a thing could ever happen. Upon hearing her reaction, Xanamund smiled and remarked that Veronica was much more stubborn and naive than she appeared to be. He expressed concern that these qualities could be problematic for a nation's ruler to possess. Xanamund then took out a letter and informed Veronica that she was right in her suspicions. Veronica, intrigued, asked him about the contents of the letter. Xanamund explained that it was a message from Princess Flara, along with his travel permit. In the letter, Flara disclosed that she was entrusting her royal baron with the truth, revealing that demons had taken over the palace. A demon disguised as a human had killed the king and was trying to become the king without a fight by marrying Flara. Flara cautioned that if the first princess tries to return to Fenalicia, she would either be killed or controlled like a puppet. So assassinating the first princess was not his primary objective. Instead, he planned to pretend Veronica's assassination while assisting her in escaping from the demons. Lydia understood this as Flara's way of safeguarding Veronica. Yido inquired whether Flara intended to sacrifice herself instead. Xanamund confirmed that she did. When they glanced at Veronica, she was in tears. Lydia inquired about the reason for her distress. Veronica tearfully admitted that she felt she had failed as an older sister. She revealed that she had chosen to study abroad for her own benefit, which resulted in her absence during a critical time in Fenalicia. Nonetheless, Flara was willing to sacrifice herself to protect her. Upon hearing this, Xanamund was impressed by their strong bond. However, he had already made plans to hide her away. Xanamund then inquired about leaving, but Veronica refused, stating she needed to go back to Fenalicia and save Flara. Xanamund informs them that the man had claimed to be a descendant of a noble family from Fenalicia, but his lineage was actually from the lowest social class, making it impossible for him to marry into the royal family. Those who opposed him mysteriously disappeared. Xanamund reveals that the man's name is Arugel. Kneeling down in front of Veronica, Xanamund mentions that he also has children and can empathize with her desire to rescue Princess Flara. However, he questions whether she truly understands the risks involved. In addition to Arugel's ambition to become king, there is Mia, whom they were unable to capture. Xanamund reveals the presence of numerous other demons in Fenalicia that they were unaware of. He explains that each demon is as powerful as 10,000 soldiers, but he finds Mia to be a weak demon in comparison. Liddy comments that Mia is the weakest demon they have encountered so far, while Yido is surprised by their comments and questions Mia's strength. Xanamund emphasizes that it seems hopeless to defeat multiple demons at once. Yido suggests seeking help from the heroes' party, mentioning that they have already met Ignore and Donis and only need to call Farah and Rosark. Yido suggests that uniting the heroes' party would allow them to save Fenalicia with their combined power. Liddy expresses enthusiasm for the plan, while Yido insists it is the best course of action. However, Xanamund declares it as impossible. Yido confronts Xanamund, questioning his reasons, and Xanamund reluctantly discloses that Princess Flara is at risk of being killed within a week. The group falls into a somber silence upon hearing this news, prompting Veronica to inquire about the reason for her killing. Xanamund clarifies that Arugel will be crowned as the king of Fenalicia in a week's time, making Princess Flara a hindrance for him. He expresses doubt about the viability of gathering the heroes' party and persuading them to act within such a short time frame. Yido points out that they don't even have a means of contacting the heroes. Xanamund concludes that rescuing Princess Flara is an impossible task. The group falls into contemplative silence, but Veronica declares that she still wants to go Fenalicia to which Xanamund expresses anticipation of her response. He then got up and made it clear that he was not subordinate to her, stating that he would prioritize his mission over her desires. He warned that if she continued to refuse, he would have no choice but to kill her, which scared both Yaito and Veronica. Yaito looked at Liddy and asked what they should do next. Yaito inquired if Liddy could defeat Xanamund while keeping Veronica safe, but Liddy remained silent, lost in thought. Yaito tried again to get Liddy's attention, but he still didn't respond. Liddy considered how a hero would handle the situation by going to Fenalicia alone. He also wondered what Miss Farah will do. The scene then shifted to a flashback where Liddy was attempting to use a healing spell, but he failed. This made him sad, and he started crying, until Farah came over to comfort him. She reassured Liddy that he had done his best, and there was no need to cry. Farah then offered Liddy some advice, suggesting he break down his problems into smaller parts. Liddy was confused by her words and didn't fully understand. Farah explains that it is challenging to create a magic circle and perform an incantation simultaneously, so it is better to focus on one task at a time. Liddy agrees and decides to start with creating the magic circle. However, he struggles to do it on his own, while Farah watches and smiles at him. Returning to the present, Liddy enthusiastically suggests breaking down their challenges into smaller parts. Yaito, confused, asks Liddy to clarify, and Liddy explains that trying to save Princess Flera and the country altogether would be too difficult. Liddy explains that rescuing Princess Flera is vital for saving the country, but defeating countless demons seems impossible for them. Therefore, Liddy suggests they should come up with a more achievable plan. Veronica is confused, while Xanamund asks for clarification. Liddy clarifies that they will prioritize saving the princess over the country. Their first step is to secure Princess Flera by essentially kidnapping her. Excitedly, Veronica understands that by doing so, they can delay Irugul's ascension to the throne. Then their next move will be to seek help from the hero's party to save Fenalicia. Yaito expresses appreciation for Liddy's idea, calling it fabulous, while Liddy responds with a smile, crediting Miss Farah's instructions. Xanamund tells them to wait, acknowledging that Liddy's idea is good, but considers it too risky. He states his objection and refuses to discuss it further. Veronica interjects with a sharp expression, making it clear she also has no intention of discussing it further. Xanamund is somewhat taken aback by her response. Veronica angrily asserts her position as first in line to the throne, stating she has the right to represent the king until Irugul is officially crowned. She commands Xanamund to abduct the second Princess Flera. Xanamund, reflecting on Veronica's unexpected authority, realizes royal blood should not be underestimated. He accepts her order, kneeling in front of her. Meanwhile, in the holy city of Sriti, Farah is praying at the church when she hears footsteps. She turns around to find Ignore and Donis. Farah comments on the long time since they last saw each other, and they both agree. Farah inquired about the purpose of their visit to the holy city. Farah then asked Ignore if she had made a decision about converting. However, Ignore stated that she had not. Farah felt disheartened by her response. Ignore revealed to Donis that Farah had been trying to convert her throughout their adventures, and Donis encouraged Ignore to tell the reason for their presence. Ignore mentioned to Farah that it was not confirmed yet, but if true, then it's a grave issue. There was a possibility that the demon lord they defeated was not the real one, which shocked Farah. When Farah asked for clarification, Ignore said she would explain on the way. Donis added that if the demon lord was still alive, they needed to find and kill it, asking Farah to join them. Farah agreed, wondering if the one they defeated was a fake, then where the real demon lord could be. Ignore admitted they did not know, suggesting the demon lord might be hiding and waiting to reveal himself. Farah disagreed, believing the demon lord was already making moves towards Fenalicia. The scene then shifts to the Fenalicia kingdom, where Irugul is somewhat surprised to see Mia. Mia, on the other hand, is embarrassed because she failed to fulfill her mission. Irugul then speaks and asks Mia if she is admitting that she failed to kill Princess Veronica and then fled. Mia replies that he could put it that way. She goes on to explain that the people accompanying Princess Veronica were strong and they both attacked her simultaneously. Mia questions how humans can be so strong when they are not even part of the hero's party. Irugul is shocked and asks if she lost to humans. He then begins to laugh uncontrollably, calling Mia useless and weak. Mia starts to get angry at Irugul's reaction. She tells him that she will not tolerate another demon insulting her and making fun of her. Suddenly, two iron chains appear out of nowhere and wrap around Mia's neck, causing her intense pain. Irugul admits that he did not know she was there and asks her to release Mia since she is going to die. At this moment, the chains around her neck were released and Mia fell to the ground, pleading with Irugul to stop tormenting her. The demon named Axia and Robbie entered the throne room, with Axia claiming she was trying to help Irugul and Robbie asking why they were summoned. A demon knight named Orion addressed Irugul as Lord Irugul and asked for his orders, to which Irugul smiled and expressed confidence in their abilities. Irugul informed them that Princess Veronica was on her way to Fenalicia, suspecting her intentions to overthrow him or abduct Princess Flera. Irugul revealed that Xanamund had betrayed him and was now siding with Princess Veronica. When Robbie inquired about their next steps, Irugul instructed them to capture Princess Veronica to replace Flera, who was planning to take her own life. Robbie questioned the fate of the others, to which Irugul stated they had to be eliminated. The scene then shifted to Liddy and the others standing on a mountain overlooking the capital of Fenalicia. Veronica observes that it has been 5 years and nothing has changed. She then sadly mentions that the only change is that her father has passed away and Flera is now in prison. Veronica expresses her gratitude for their help, to which Liddy responds that it's not a problem. Liddy reassures Veronica that there is no need to thank them until they successfully kidnap Flera, and Veronica responds with an okay. Then they all sit near the trees. Liddy suggests that they should come up with a plan first. Xanamund confirms that they are all listening to Liddy's plan. Liddy informs them that there are at least 2 demons in Fenalicia and Irugul is aware of their impending arrival. Liddy emphasizes the need to strategize the kidnapping of Flera without engaging in a fight while she is still being guarded. Yaito acknowledges Liddy's point about the necessity of a plan. Xanamund asks if Liddy already has a plan in mind. Liddy begins to speak, but then pauses to think. Yaito points out to Liddy that this is where he tends to show his immaturity, to which Liddy apologizes. Xanamund reassures Liddy that he is not blaming him for thinking this way, but cautions that he is making a serious error. Liddy inquired Xanamund about his statement. Xanamund explained to Liddy the importance of gathering information in order to create an effective plan. He emphasized that having information is crucial for the success of a plan and entrusted Liddy to leave this essential task to him. The scene then shifted to a later time outside the castle, where a guard standing in front of the castle doors expressed his fatigue and wondered when his relief would arrive so he could rest. Suddenly, he heard a noise and noticed a stone on the ground. Xanamund appeared behind the guard out of nowhere, holding his sword to the guard's throat and instructing him not to make a sound. The scene shifted to a moment later, where the guard handed Xanamund a letter containing information about the guard's rotations. The guard questioned the truth of what Xanamund had told him, to which Xanamund confirmed that it's true. Xanamund informed the guard that Princess Veronica would arrive soon, and they would then defeat Irugul. The guard expressed his joy at hearing this news, and mentioned that no one was content with Irugul's rule, stating that all the soldiers would join Princess Veronica's cause. However, Xanamund informed him that there is no need for it. Xanamund instructed the guard to only share the information with someone he trusts. He then felt a presence behind the wall and asked the person to come out. The girl was surprised as she hadn't made a noise. She emerged by crawling. Xanamund warned her that if she tried to run, he would chase her down and kill her, which made the girl cry. The girl turned out to be the chief national security officer, Lily. Xanamund recognized her and told her to act like she hadn't heard anything. Curious, Lily asked Xanamund why he was there. Lily informed Xanamund that his task was to find Princess Veronica and escape, but he had brought Veronica to Fenalicia to kidnap Princess Flera instead. Lily scolded Xanamund, claiming he had no idea what he was doing. She described Irugul as a monster that no human could defeat, warning that it would kill everyone. Lily urged Xanamund to leave immediately. Xanamund mentioned that he knew she cared about Princess Veronica. He comforted her by urging her to trust in Veronica and her friends, emphasizing their strength. Xanamund suggested that they were even more powerful than they realized. Xanamund reassured Lily that with this immense power, he believed they could defeat the demons. Feeling somewhat relieved, Lily mentioned to Xanamund that they had no other choice. Xanamund then smiled menacingly and stated that Lily was worth serving for this very reason. Both the guard and Lily were alarmed by Xanamund's expression. The following morning, Lily woke up and sat on her bed, pondering the events of the previous night. She wondered if they could actually succeed in kidnapping Flera. Remembering rumors about Xanamund being the strongest in his family, Lily hoped that with his help, Veronica could carry out the kidnapping. Just as Lily was lost in thought, there was a knock on the door, interrupting her. Lily opened the door and asked the guard what was going on. The guard, looking shocked, told Lily that something unbelievable has happened, prompting her to ask for more details. The guard informed Lily that Princess Veronica had returned to Fenalicia and she is all alone. Lily was taken aback upon hearing this. The scene begins with Veronica standing in the throne room, her hands handcuffed. Erugel then gazes at Veronica and greets her to Fenalicia. Introducing himself, Erugel expresses his pleasure in meeting her. Erugel informs Veronica that he is soon to be the king of Fenalicia. He mentions that Veronica was discovered standing alone in front of the castle. Erugel questions her about the reason and whether it was part of a plan. He warns Veronica that if it was part of a plan, it was a foolish act. Veronica then asks Erugel if he is the one who killed her father. Erugel confirms that he was responsible for his death. Veronica inquires if Erugel plans to kill Flera once he is finished with her. Erugel admits that he will indeed kill Flera. Erugel questions Veronica if she considers him a fool, but she remains silent. Veronica suggests to Erugel that she can take Flera's place. She explains that while Flera may be useful as a princess, she, as the firstborn princess, would be even more beneficial to him. Veronica then requested Erugel to release Flera, but Erugel refused, stating that he would not comply. When Veronica inquired about the reason, Erugel explained that he didn't want to repeat past mistakes and didn't underestimate humans. Erugel mentioned that while humans may be weaker than demons, their sheer numbers and exceptional individuals make them a force to be reckoned with. Erugel pointed out that some humans are capable of surpassing demons. He explained to Veronica that direct confrontation with humans would not be beneficial, so he devised a plan to eliminate them without facing them head-on. Erugel expressed his frustration with unforeseen disturbances caused by humans. Although the guards were displeased by his words, Veronica remained silent. Erugel mentioned that he couldn't refrain from venting his dissatisfaction a little. He then informed Veronica that her sister's death was necessary for this reason. Subsequently, Erugel instructed the guard to imprison Veronica. The scene later shifted to Veronica sitting sorrowfully in jail, her hands bound by handcuffs. Lily peered through the walls and was shocked to see Veronica, contemplating the arrest of the princess. Lily recalled her conversations with Xanamund and wondered why he was behaving so arrogantly. She questioned his current whereabouts and worried about the fate of Fenalicia if things continued this way. The focus then shifted to Liddy and the others, where Xanamund informed them that everything was going according to plan. Xanamund instructed Liddy and Yido to proceed as discussed, and Liddy responded with an okay. Yido expressed doubts about the plan's success, unsure if it would actually work. Xanamund remained silent in response to Yido's concerns. Liddy reassured Yido that the plan would be successful. The scene then transitioned to a past event where the heroes' party members were shocked to hear that Rozark's wallet had been stolen at the tavern. Ignore scolded Rozark, as they had all entrusted him with their money to purchase premium gear. Ignore questioned Rozark's audacity to drink in such a situation. Rozark admitted to his mistake, but Ignore urged him to change his behavior. Rozark explains that he must work to earn back what he lost with his body, but Ignore advises him not to speak such things in front of Liddy. Farah informs Donis that they are in serious trouble, prompting Donis to suggest finding an inn for the night, but Liddy bursts into laughter. Liddy then reveals a hidden stash, explaining that he had anticipated this situation and kept it a secret, which delights Rosark, and he praises Liddy for it. The scene shifts to the present, where Yaito questions Liddy about why he suddenly started sharing a short story. Liddy responds by saying that Rosark had experienced many failures. Liddy recalls that Rosark often had his wallet stolen at taverns, was frequently deceived by women, and enjoyed gambling but never won. Yaito remarks that his impression of the hero was very high, but after hearing Liddy's story, he concludes that the hero seems rather worthless. However, Liddy points out that whenever someone's life was in danger, the hero never failed. Liddy explains that true heroes demonstrate their strength when protecting others' lives, and he has always admired the hero for that. Liddy, feeling confident, explains that this is why he is determined to rescue Flara successfully. Yaito then cheerfully suggests they should do it, with Xanamund praising Liddy's determination. The scene then shifts to the castle where Flara was dancing, and a loud noise startles the maids. Irugul comments that Flara seems out of breath, and asks what's wrong, to which Flara accuses him of pretending not to know. Flara demands to know if Veronica is in the castle, to which Irugul mentions that she still has allies in the castle. Angrily, Flara reminds Irugul of his promise not to harm Veronica as long as she complies with his wishes. Irugul smirks, confirming that he will keep his word, and teasing Flara about her behavior, stating he wouldn't harm his betrothed sister. Despite Irugul's reassurances, Flara becomes even more upset, admitting that it was a mistake to trust a demon like him. Irugul mentions that Veronica is settling in and promises to let Flara see her soon. At that moment, Flara started casting a spell that surprised Irugul. She then activated the spell by reciting some words while Irugul crossed his hands to defend against it. The spell, called Thunder Nova at level 48, struck Irugul as the guards outside became aware that something was amiss inside the room. The guards quickly entered, inquiring about the disturbance. Irugul held Flara up on a chair, and as the spell ravaged the room, he assured the guards that they were simply engaging in playful behavior as a married couple. Irugul turned his attention back to Flara, complimenting her and suggesting that killing her would be a waste, as he had a plan in mind. He informed Flara that he intended to impregnate her before taking her life, confident that a powerful demon offspring would result. Flara was stunned by Irugul's words, while Veronica waited for Liddy and the others to take action as they had strategized. Flara inquired about the reason for the hero's party needing to defeat the Demon Lord. Ignore explained to Flara that the Demon Lord possesses a unique mana that grants strength to all demons. Ignore went on to mention that by eliminating the Demon Lord, all other demons would become weakened, giving humans an advantage in conflicts. Furthermore, Ignore stated that defeating the Demon Lord could lead to peace in the world. Flara agreed with Ignore's reasoning, acknowledging that this was why they were all willing to risk their lives to confront the Demon Lord. Flara then questioned Ignore about whether there was any noticeable weakening in the demons. Ignore informed Flara that she had thoroughly investigated, but found no evidence of the demons becoming weaker. Donna suggested that if that was the case, then the Demon Lord was still alive. Donis then inquired if Ignore had any information on the current whereabouts of the Demon Lord, or if she had any thoughts on the matter. Ignore revealed to Donis that she had a theory that seemed possible, but also posed the worst-case scenario. This revelation shocked Flara and Donis. Donis emphasized to Ignore that if her theory was correct, they needed to take action quickly to prevent a great danger to the world. Ignore agrees with Donis and emphasizes the need to reform the hero's party. She mentions that there is only one member remaining, Rosark, and expresses hope that he has not been influenced by marrying the princess. Ignore stresses the urgency of speaking to Rosark quickly. Flara expresses concern for Liddy's well-being and notes the dangers of becoming an adventurer with the Demon Lord's threat still present. Donis suggests it would be safer for Liddy to join them. Ignore insists they must focus on defeating the Demon Lord and cannot worry about Liddy at the moment. Donis suggests Ignore may be trying to reassure herself. He informs them that Liddy should have already arrived in Fenalicia, and all they can do is pray for his safety. Farah is confident that Liddy is doing fine. The scene then shifts to Liddy and others walking in the streets of Fenalicia. Xanamund advises them to split up as traveling together at night would draw too much attention. Yido and Liddy responded with an okay. Xanamund then informed them before parting ways that he believes the plan is successful. Xanamund mentioned that they are going to battle demons, and it's hard to predict the outcome. He warned them that death is a possibility and asked if they were prepared. Liddy confidently stated that he was ready to face death. Xanamund smiled and tells that he has no doubt on that. He added that if Liddy survived, he would prove himself as a skilled adventurer. They split up in different directions to execute their plan. The scene shifted to the castle where Lily walked, hiding her face and muttering that she cannot sleep. Lily blamed Xanamund for promising to kidnap Flara, but not following through. In her thoughts, she encountered Mia and was surprised. Mia asked Lily why she was out late at night, to which Lily replied that she couldn't sleep. Lily wondered if Mia knew about her secret meeting with Xanamund. Mia inquired Lily about her thoughts on the situation, which surprised Lily. Lily assured Mia that she was not involved in anything suspicious, to which Mia questioned what Lily was referring to. Mia then brought up Veronica unexpectedly appearing and getting caught easily. She mentioned that Erugel and his allies were not taking the matter seriously, but she had a feeling there was more to it. Lily agreed with Mia and suggested increasing security around Veronica, but Mia disagreed. She explained that they would actually decrease the security. Smiling, Mia suggested letting Veronica go ahead with any plans she might have, leaving Lily somewhat shocked. Mia admitted she didn't know Veronica's intentions, but she supported the idea of Flara being kidnapped. She pondered how Erugel would respond when the two princesses have escaped. Mia expressed a desire to see Erugel in that predicament with a mischievous laugh, while Lily stayed silent. Lily reflected on how both Mia and Erugel were demons, but noted that Mia was not assisting him. She acknowledged that humans and demons may appear similar, but ultimately they were not the same. The next scene transitions to the castle's prison. Erugel enters the prison and instructs the guard to take all the soldiers and leave. The guard questions why, as they cannot leave the prison empty. Erugel explains that once he becomes the king, he will introduce a law that anyone who makes the king repeat himself more than 3 times will face the death penalty. The guard is shocked and apologizes to Erugel. Erugel reassures the guard and tells him to leave immediately. Erugel then goes to Veronica's cell and informs her of his presence. Veronica asks Erugel what he wants, and he comments on her cold demeanor. Erugel mentions that they haven't spoken much and would like to chat with her. Veronica wonders if Erugel is worried, and he responds with a puzzled expression. She points out the unusual nature of a king visiting a prisoner in person when he could have his subordinates interrogate her. Erugel expresses confusion and questions the purpose of provoking him. Erugel asks Veronica if she wants him to kill her, to which he stands up and firmly says no. Veronica explains that if he is worried, it indicates his lack of knowledge. She just wants to make sure of something, to which Erugel inquires about her cryptic statements. At that moment, mana started circulating within the prison, which surprised Erugel. Erugel wondered about the source of this mana, as Veronica was currently unable to use magic. Erugel pondered on the formation of a magic circle and the massive amount of mana being produced. Suddenly, Veronica uttered something that triggered the spell. The spell was incredibly potent, causing the castle to collapse and leaving the guards bewildered. Despite the destruction around her, Veronica emerged unscathed. With conviction in her voice, Veronica assured Flara that she is coming to rescue her. Veronica stood at the site of the explosion. The guards rushed towards her, surprised to see her. Veronica instructed the guards to pay attention to her. In a confident tone, she informed them that she had defeated Erugel, leaving the guards in shock. Veronica ordered the guards to search for Erugel's body, which could be buried under the rubble. Suddenly, Liddy emerged from beneath a rock and praised Veronica for her accomplishments. The guards were astonished to see Liddy. One guard inquired about Liddy, to which Veronica replied that Liddy was her friend. Veronica then explained to the guard that their plan was simple. Liddy elaborated on how they executed the plan, allowing Veronica to be imprisoned and then creating an underground room beneath her cell by digging a hole from outside the castle. The guard questioned Liddy about the time it took to dig the underground room, and Liddy claimed it only took one night. Veronica clarified that Liddy had drawn a magic circle in the underground room for her to use magic. She mentioned that despite Irugel's unexpected presence in the prison, their plan remained unchanged. Veronica informs the guards that Irugel is a demon, along with others in Fenalicia. The guards were surprised by this revelation. One guard expressed disbelief, stating he had thought Irugel was a scoundrel, not a demon. The guards became concerned for their city, Fenalicia. Liddy reassures the guards that they are here to protect Fenalicia. Liddy confidently declares that they will reclaim Fenalicia from the demons. The guards feel somewhat comforted by Liddy's words and agree to gather troops to assist in fighting the demons. However, Liddy advises the guards against this plan. Veronica explains that the demons are too powerful for regular soldiers to combat. Veronica assures the guards that she and Liddy can handle the demons. A guard points out that even with their strength, they would still be at a disadvantage if they fought alone. Liddy reassures the guards that they are not alone in this battle. Suddenly, fireworks begin from the other sides of the castle. The guards are astonished and inquire about the source of the fireworks and the situation. Liddy mentions that it is part of their strategy. They conducted the attack simultaneously from 3 different locations. While inside the castle, Robbie informs his comrades that 3 intruders have breached the security at the same time, raising concerns about the castle's security. Axia reveals that the soldiers have switched sides to join the intruders. Orion points out that it doesn't matter because their objective is to eliminate Irugel's enemies. Robbie expresses frustration at Mia's absence, but Axia advises him to direct his anger towards their opponents. Orion declares that they have talked enough and it's time to take action. They start moving forward, with Mia watching from behind a wall with a smile. Mia observes that things are getting interesting, believing that humans are not capable of defeating demons, but Liddy and others are different. Mia hopes that they will eliminate each other, leaving her alone in the end. The focus then shifts to Liddy and Veronica, as a guard inquires about their attire. Veronica explains that they are in their battle gear, with Liddy confirming. Liddy suddenly remembers something and asks Veronica to wait for a moment. Liddy approaches the guard and whispers something in his ear. The guard acknowledges that he understood. When Veronica inquires about what Liddy told the guard, he insists that it's a secret. Suddenly, Orion appears and introduces himself to both Liddy and Veronica. Orion orders Veronica to go back to her cell and threatens to harm her if she disobeys. The focus then switches to the castle's main gate where Yido is setting off fireworks and boasting about his achievement. 2 guards rush over to Yido, delighted to find Princess Veronica's pet in their midst. Despite their claims, Yido corrects them by stating that he is a Lexidrigan, not a pet. Axia arrives and questions the disturbance, causing chains to emerge and surround the guards as they cry out for help. Yido is taken aback by the chaos. Axia expresses her pleasure at encountering a Lexidrigan and mentions her excitement about capturing such a rare research species. The scene transitions to behind the castle, where Xanamund stands with his hands resting on his sword. Robbie arrives on the scene and approaches Xanamund to have a conversation. Robbie mentions hearing about Xanamund's altercation with Mia, to which Xanamund responds that he had assistance. Robbie expresses his disapproval of any arrogant behavior from Xanamund, stating it angers him. Robbie, filled with rage, threatens to kill Xanamund. Despite this, Xanamund remains unfazed and starts to smirk. When questioned by Robbie, Xanamund brushes it off as insignificant. Xanamund then reveals he is known as the Noble Assassin. Xanamund mocks Robbie for warning before attacking, which only fuels Robbie's anger further. In a fit of rage, Robbie charges at Xanamund, declaring his intention to end his life with a menacing tone.